Chapter 545. The two of them took out a pair of maps. Sure enough, they were connected together except for the bottom piece. Two pieces are missing one piece. What about the remaining map? Jing Xingji asked. Mo Chenga glanced at him. If you want to snatch it, just say it. We all know what kind of person you are, so you don't need to pretend. Jing Xingji coughed and said, it might not be appropriate to snatch it now. She looked at him and asked, what do you mean? We're in the celestial pole and they're only in the early stage of the nascent soul realm. What's wrong with snatching it? It wouldn't be a problem if there were only two of them, but we speculate that they're probably followed by a cultivator in the late stage of the nascent soul realm. A cultivator in the late stage of the nascent soul realm? Mo Chenga and She looked at each other in surprise. What's their background? They're from Nighthawk City, Nye Wuxiang answered. Nighthawk City? Mo Chenga thought for a moment. Is it Devil Monarch Night Frost? It's just a guess, Nye Wuxiang said. You've been in Yunzhong for a long time, so you should know that there's usually only one nascent soul cultivator in a devil city. She didn't finish, but Mo Chenga already knew what she was implying. Yes, it seems these two people have an unusual relationship with Devil Monarch Night Frost. Nye Wuxiang continued, so we think Devil Monarch Night Frost is probably following them for such an important matter. A secret storehouse was a temptation even cultivators in the late stage of the nascent soul realm couldn't refuse. If they weren't acting on their own, Devil Monarch Night Frost would definitely come. She nodded and looked at Jing Xingji. So, do you think if we snatch their map now we won't have a chance to turn back when Devil Monarch Night Frost comes? If you're sure you can defeat a cultivator in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, forget what I said. Jing Xingji shrugged and said very straightforwardly. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pondered for a while and said slowly, I can fight a cultivator in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, but I might not be able to win. Protecting myself shouldn't be a problem. What if they disregard everything and risk their lives to kill us? Jing Xingji asked again. After a moment of silence, she said faintly, that'll depend on your own luck. Not to mention anything else, great cultivators in the late nascent soul realm had been stuck in the nascent soul realm for hundreds or even thousands of years. Their natal magic weapons and unique divine abilities had been nourished and cultivated for countless years. The advantages accumulated over such a long period of time were no small matter. Even though she was known as a genius and had many fated chances, he still wasn't their match. After all, which cultivator who cultivated to the late nascent soul stage was not a genius? Who didn't have fortuitous encounters? She glanced at him. What do you mean by that? Jing Xingji rubbed his nose and said, I'm just suggesting a possibility. That Night Frost Demon Monarch is a woman, and women tend to be emotional even if they've cultivated to the nascent soul realm. Why are you all looking at me? Mo Chenga withdrew her gaze as if nothing had happened, but Nye Wuxiang let out a humph. Then what do you think? She asked. Jing Xingji said, I think that before the matter is clear, we should pretend that we don't know each other and propose a three-way cooperation. It won't be too late to decide after we find the storehouse. If they found the storehouse smoothly, it didn't matter whether they snatched the map or not. If those two devil cultivators played tricks on the way, the four of them could just kill them. As for Night Frost Demon Monarch, if she really came later, they could just save some trouble and give up some treasures. The four of them weren't insatiably greedy people. If Night Frost Demon Monarch wanted to turn hostile, they wouldn't stop her unless she attacked indiscriminately. If the four of them worked together, they might have a fighting chance. She was the first to agree, and Mo Chenga also said she had no objections. As for Nye Wuxiang, she should have discussed it with Jing Xingji. After the four of them reached an agreement, they continued to move forward while talking about what happened after they parted. Mo Chenga sent Nye Wuxiang a voice transmission. How did you get together with Jing Xingji? Nye Wuxiang gave her a helpless look and also sent her voice transmission. I ran into him by chance. She then talked about what happened after they parted. When they parted in Guifang City, Mo Chenga traveled in Yunzhong while Nye Wuxiang concentrated on refining primordial devil aura. The primordial devil aura she swallowed was Mei Feng's preparation to directly advance from the early stage to the late stage. Although it wasn't complete, the energy it contained couldn't be underestimated. It was enough for her to advance from the core formation realm to the nascent soul realm. After Mo Chenga left, she entered closed-door meditation for more than 40 years and advanced to the nascent soul realm in one fell swoop. Mo Chenga did some calculations. Nye Wuxiang advanced to the nascent soul realm only a few years after she formed her nascent soul. Nie Wuxiang didn't hear about what happened in the Sea of Returning Ruins until she came out of closed-door meditation. This was a major event in the cultivation world of Yunzhong. It was related to most of the nascent soul cultivators in Yunzhong and various big forces. Low-level cultivators didn't know much about it, but high-level cultivators knew everything. Nie Wuxiang felt sad when she learned Mo Qianga was locked in an independent space and probably couldn't come out. But in less than 2 years she heard Mo Qianga not only left the secret place in the Sea of Returning Ruins safely, but also advanced to the nascent soul realm and turned Yunzhong upside down because of her nascent soul tribulation. Mo Qianga asked, "What happened to Yunzhong after that?" "I went to Yuan province after the heavenly tribulation. After I came back I've been in closed-door meditation. I only came out not long ago, so I haven't had time to inquire about what happened in Yunzhong." This question made Nie Wuxiang laugh gloatingly. "You definitely don't know how big of a trouble you've caused." What? Mo Qianga didn't understand. Her nascent soul tribulation only destroyed most of the sea beasts in that area of the sea, but it didn't matter to Yunzhong. There were many demonic beasts in the Sea of Returning Ruins. Nie Wuxiang said, after the heavenly tribulation that day, it triggered cracks and tsunamis. One Leaf Island's great island protecting formation was torn, and the whole island sank to the bottom of the sea. What? Mo Qianga was shocked. "So you're saying Yunzhong lost a lot of high-level cultivators?" Many core formation cultivators gathered on One Leaf Island. If they all died, the number of nascent soul cultivators in Yunzhong would be greatly reduced in the next few hundred years. "Not that many," Nie Wuxiang said. "Many nascent soul cultivators gathered on One Leaf Island. Although many of them went to chase you, many of them stayed there to maintain the situation. When they saw the situation wasn't good, they brought those cultivators back to the mainland. It's just that those cultivators who didn't return from hunting beasts have disappeared forever." Fortunately, Mo Qianga felt lucky. "Although I didn't directly cause this, so I don't have to bear the karma, if so many people really died I wouldn't feel good." Nie Wuxiang chuckled. "In any case it's related to you. You're really a jinx." Then she said, "One Leaf Island disappeared, so Yunzhong is in big trouble. You also know that most of the resources of Yunzhong's high-level cultivators come from One Leaf Island." Mo Qianga nodded. "In that case Yunzhong hasn't been very good these past few years." "Yes." Nie Wuxiang shook her head. "One Leaf Island has been in operation for tens of thousands of years. How can it be built in just a few years? Besides, the southern end of Yunzhong is no longer the Sea of Returning Ruins, and there are far fewer sea beasts there. In my opinion, Yunzhong has already lost its advantage in resources. Now it's not much better than the Celestial Pole. Speaking of spiritual lands, the Celestial Pole also had a lot of them, but they lacked the resources of the sea compared to Yunzhong. Now that Yunzhong lost One Leaf Island and was no longer connected to the Sea of Returning Ruins, it no longer had an advantage." Mo Qianga looked a little happy. "If that's the case, the Celestial Pole and Yunzhong won't have to worry about being suppressed if we join forces." Nie Wuxiang looked calm. "Who's stronger or weaker has nothing to do with me. The only person related to her in the Celestial Pole was Master Song Feng, but he was a shadow in her life. And Yunzhong had nothing to do with her." Seeing her expression, Mo Qianga sighed inwardly and changed the topic. "You haven't told me how you met Jing Xingji." Nie Wuxiang showed a bitter smile and answered, "Later the world changed and Yunzhong and the Celestial Pole became connected, so I returned to the Celestial Pole. Who would have thought that as soon as I arrived at Tiandao sect, I would run into this guy?" She glanced at Jing Xingji. "I see." Mo Qianga nodded. "Then why did you come here?" Nie Wuxiang lowered her head and fiddled with the black gold piece in her hand. After a long time she finally said, "I stole this thing from my master." Mo Qianga was stunned and extremely surprised. Could it be that the fated chance Master Song Feng obtained was here? Sure enough, Nie Wuxiang's next words confirmed her guess. "Back then what my master obtained from Demonic Mountain was precisely this thing and a complete map. Maybe his luck came and he found this place according to the map. The restrictions in this place had already been cracked, so he found his way inside without any mishaps and obtained the primordial devil great art." "I see." Mo Qianga nodded, but she soon frowned. She felt something was wrong. The primordial devil great art. Based on her experience, this thing was probably related to the stone tablets in the Five Spirits Sacrificial Temple. Could this place be related to the Five Spirits Sacrificial Temple? Explaining this matter to Nie Wuxiang would be very troublesome, so she might as well not talk about it. "Before I returned to the Celestial Pole, I participated in an auction in Yunzhong. That auction happened to have another black gold piece, which was the one in the hands of those two devil cultivators. So, I came back to prevent the treasure from being taken by someone else. Since that's the case, do you know how to go on this path? Nie Wuxiang shook her head and said, I came here with my master when I was young, but I was too young at that time and couldn't remember clearly. Besides, I only stole this black gold piece. My master always carried the complete map with him, so I didn't get it. For so many years, Nie Wuxiang had been concentrating on cultivating and hadn't earned any spirit stones. She must have stolen one of Master Song Feng's Qingkuan bags. So, you came here to look for treasures? Nie Wuxiang nodded, then shook her head. Looking for treasures is incidental. The main reason is for cultivation techniques. Cultivation techniques? Mo Chenga was confused. Aren't you practicing the primordial devil great art? Yes, but the primordial devil great art I have isn't complete. Nie Wuxiang sighed. The primordial devil great art was comprehended by my master, but he didn't remember the part after the nascent soul realm. So you had to come here sooner or later. And? Nie Wuxiang glanced at Jing Xingji, then curled her lips. I'm all alone and weak. I just happened to run into this guy, so I made a deal with him. I brought him here and he helped me take the treasure. Upon seeing Nie Wuxiang's expression, Mo Chenga pondered for a moment and immediately understood what was going on. She couldn't help but smile. You extorted a lot of good things from him, right? Sure enough, Nie Wuxiang glared at Jing Xingji with resentment. She quickly composed herself and asked, What about you? Why did you also come here? Chapter 546. Along the way, as Nie Wuxiang said, most of the restrictions and traps were cracked, leaving only a few behind. Including the fire ant traps in front, they weren't too powerful. A foundation-building cultivator with good luck and sufficient preparation might be able to break through. The great art of primordial devil and the secret storehouse. Mo Chenga thought mockingly. Sure enough, the heavens couldn't distinguish between good and bad people. Master Song Feng obtained a fated chance, so how could those cultivators who cultivated properly but couldn't break through endure it? However, Master Song Feng, who was still a small cultivator back then, wasn't necessarily less diligent than these cultivators, nor was he as temperamental and murderous as he was today. No one was born a bad person. Qin Shi and Jing Xingji, who were walking in front, stopped. Mo Chenga looked up and couldn't help but widen her eyes in surprise. In front of them was a vast space with towering stone forests decorated with earthly fires. When they looked up, they couldn't see the top. It didn't look like underground at all. The three of them all turned to look at Nie Wuxiang. Don't look at me, Nie Wuxiang said. I don't know how to walk this path. Jing Xingji was the first to lose his cool. Then why did you say you'd take me to the storehouse? Nie Wuxiang spread her hands and said somewhat shamelessly, I didn't say I knew the way. Wouldn't it be fine if I took you to the storehouse in the end? You? Jing Xingji stared at her incredulously. He didn't expect he would be tricked and was speechless for a long time. Nie Wuxiang ignored him and said to Mo Chenga, This path was originally full of traps, but later, some senior cracked them. Now it's just a simple maze. As long as we walk out of it, we won't be far from the storehouse. Mo Chenga nodded. This underground stone forest should have been created by opening up an underground space. The long stone pillars were connected to the top so they could only walk but not fly. The distance between the stone pillars was neither too far nor too close, so they could walk anywhere, so there was no path to follow. Just as they were about to spread out their divine senses, Nie Wuxiang said, These stone pillars themselves have the effect of misleading divine senses, so we can't use divine senses to explore the path here. Mo Chenga and Qin Shi paused and withdrew their divine senses. So, we can only walk step by step? Qin Shi asked. Pretty much. If it weren't for Senior breaking the formations and mechanisms here, we would have most likely died trying to pass through this stone forest. Right now we're just walking through the maze, which is already very good. Soon after, Nie Wuxiang added, My master has come here many times, but he also walked through the maze. It was 80% likely that Xiao Xilan and her team were the ones who had broken the array formations and mechanisms here. Mo Chenga thought to herself. Xiao Xilan was indeed worthy of being the successor of Xuanji School. She was able to crack most of these mechanisms merely by relying on the sporadic mechanisms passed down from the distant past era. Along the way there were only a few mechanisms that weren't completely cracked. With such attainments in mechanisms, why was she still unable to return? What had happened to her in this underground storeroom? Was it a formation mechanism that far exceeded their realm, or was it an internal strife? Qin Shi pondered for a moment, then said, Sandstorm City can interfere with divine senses. Is it because of this stone forest underground? Emo Chinga couldn't help but nod. It's very possible. She could only understand part of the formation above, so it was only a guess that it could interfere with divine sense. My master also thinks so, Nie Wuxiang said. Then let's go. Now that things had come to this, it was useless to argue with Nie Wuxiang. Jing Xingji glared at her fiercely, then turned around and took the lead to enter the stone forest. Why didn't you leave a mark? Emo Chinga asked as they entered the stone forest. Leaving a mark isn't very useful. Nie Wuxiang spread her hands. Divine senses will create illusions here, and there's no way to go. Whether it's leaving a mark or pulling a string, it'll be a mess in the end. It'd be better to look for traces left by predecessors. I remember my master also has a way to remember routes. Emo Chinga thought about it and agreed, so she didn't say anything more. Although it wasn't very useful, they still left their marks along the way. At least they could find out if they went the wrong way. Did you really come here for a mission? Nie Wuxiang asked again. Before they could finish talking, they already arrived at the stone forest. Emo Chinga shook her head, then answered, There's no harm in telling you. We came here for our own matters. This thing is actually someone else's mission. She then told Jing Xingji about their encounter with Huaziki and Jing Xingji, including their deaths and how they obtained the black gold pieces. As for their encounter with the two devil cultivators, Qin she had already told Jing Xingji. In the end, Emo Chinga said, Now it seems that Senior Xiao Xilan probably died here. That being the case, let's explore the way and finish this mission. Really? Nie Wuxiang cast a sidelong glance at her with a faint smile. All right. Under her gaze, Emo Chinga had to confess. Once we find the storehouse, we'll take some things out. Nie Wuxiang nodded, very satisfied with her answer. Right, you've been to the storehouse. Did you see any skeletons or anything on the way? Nie Wuxiang shook her head. No. My master also said that when he first came here, he found that the traps and restrictions had long been cracked. Someone must have been here, but the storehouse was intact, and he didn't find any traces of those fallen cultivators. Is that so? Back then, Master Song Feng could reach the storehouse smoothly even though he was only in the foundation building realm. Obviously, the traps and restrictions along the way were no longer a threat. Then why did Xiao Xilan die here? Or were they wrong? Maybe this wasn't Xiao Xilan's burial place? There's one possibility. Nie Wuxiang knew what she was thinking, so she said, There's a passage outside the storehouse. I don't know where it leads, but there might be some clues. Passage? Emo Chinga's thoughts turned. She recalled Master Song Feng's primordial devil great technique and couldn't help but guess. Could this passage lead to some sacrificial temple? Ahead of them, Qin Shi and Jing Xingji suddenly stopped. Jing Xingji shouted, Look, there's a mark here. Emo Chinga and Nie Wuxiang moved closer. As soon as she saw the tadpole-shaped mark, Nie Wuxiang's eyes brightened. This is my master's mark, she said. Keep walking. If you see this mark, follow the direction of the tail. My master came here many times. This is the route he took, so it can save us a lot of trouble. The three of them didn't object and kept walking. The stone pillars were densely packed and extended in all directions. Often, after walking for a while, they couldn't find the mark anymore. However, Master Song Feng's route was a lot of repetitive, so they often walked around and saw another route. The four of them went back and forth. After spending several hours, they finally came out of the maze safely. Emo Chinga looked at the magnificent underground stone forest and couldn't help but sigh. I really don't know what kind of divine power the ancient cultivators had. They could actually open up such a wonderful underground world. Nie Wuxiang nodded. If those people were trapped in the maze, we'd save a lot of trouble. At that time, we just need to take the treasures and go out. There's no need to fight over them. Treasures couldn't be taken casually in this underground storehouse. Otherwise, Master Song Feng would have emptied the storehouse long ago after coming here so many times. Therefore, Nie Wuxiang felt that there wouldn't be any conflict as long as she could get what she wanted if she entered the storehouse at the same time to look for treasures. But the problem was, if they entered the treasured land at the same time, who would be at ease with the other party? She coveted the treasures in the other party's hands, but she also had to guard against the other party making the first move. Unless the strength of the two parties was balanced, a fight was inevitable. Nie Wuxiang stole Master Song Feng's treasures and ran away, but this was Master Song Feng's fated chance sight. She felt guilty and didn't want to fight with others. Qin Shi shook his head. If there are really late-stage nascent soul cultivators following them, I'm afraid this maze won't trap them for long. Let's move faster. After leaving the stone forest, there was a natural karst cave in front of them. The cave was low and had many hanging stalagmites. It extended in all directions and had countless interconnected cave entrances. They went in here and came out there just like a natural maze. After passing through several checkpoints, all the mechanisms and restrictions were cracked without exception. The four of them arrived at the entrance of the storehouse without any danger. However, when they looked at the storehouse, Mo Tiange, Qin Shi, and Jing Xingji all doubted their eyes. The storehouse of Ice Palace, a great ancient cultivation group in returning ruins C, was a huge ice cave. It was magnificent and incomparably gorgeous. At first glance, one could tell it was no small matter. But what about the storehouse in front of them? The low cave didn't have any decorations. It was completely different from the magnificent stone forest just now. It looked like a low-level cultivator's immortal's cave. Even if it was a secret storehouse, wasn't this too simple and crude? You didn't go the wrong way, did you? Jing Xingji looked at Nie Wuxiang suspiciously. Nie Wuxiang snorted through her nose and didn't answer. Mo Tiange looked at the cave in front of her. The cave entrance was narrow and didn't have any decorations. It was so gray that she almost ignored it. But even so, she didn't dare to look down on this storehouse at all. A layer of hazy light covered the cave entrance. Even if they didn't do anything, they could still feel the invisible spiritual aura pressure. A woman in purple fluttered down from the sky of Sandstorm City. She was as cold as frost and as beautiful as a peach. Hong Xiao, who was under the sand tower, went to greet her. Lord. The woman in purple nodded. Her face was cold and expressionless. Shuang. Seeing her, the gloominess on Qianshuan's face finally faded a little. It was Devil Monarch Night Frost, the Lord of Night Owl City. She was still expressionless, but there was a hint of softness in her eyes. How is it? She asked while looking at Tianxian. Her voice was as cold as snow water, clear and transparent. I found it. Tianxian waved the sheepskin scroll in his hand and handed it to her. But it's a bit troublesome. Devil Monarch Night Frost took it, flipped through it and threw it back to him. What kind of trouble? There are two other groups of people, Tianxian said. One group is cultivators from the Celestial Pole, and the other group is nascent soul individual cultivators from Yunzhong. There are two people in each group. How's their strength? Not bad. Tianxian frowned. The cultivators from the Celestial Pole are a man and a woman, one in the middle stage and the other in the early stage. I fought with the one in the middle stage and I wasn't his match. As for the one in the early stage, Hong Xiao couldn't do anything to him. The two individual cultivators from Yunzhong are both in the early stage. One is a devil cultivator and the other is a sword cultivator. The sword cultivator's strength is extraordinary. He broke my Azura hand. Devil Monarch Night Frost's gaze was fixed. Your hand? Tianxian raised his arm. It's okay. I was just careless. I told you to be careful when you come to the Celestial Pole. You've lived two lives, so how could you still be so careless? Devil Monarch Night Frost's voice was cold, but there was no reproach in her tone. If one listened carefully, they would feel a trace of warmth. I know. Tianxian looked at her and said gently. Devil Monarch Night Frost looked away as if she wasn't used to such a gaze. Okay, let's get down to business. What's the situation now? Chapter 547. Crystal Jades. Looking at the dense formation inlaid with crystal jades in front of them, the three people except Nie Wuxiang cried out. Nie Wuxiang didn't know that each of them had a lot of crystal jades, so she thought they were surprised to see treasures. It's because of the crystal jades that the protective formation here won't fail. The protective formation in front of them had thousands of crystal jades. Even in the Middle Ages, it was still a great fortune. Unfortunately, this formation was very profound. There was no way to crack it or take it down. The three people quickly calmed down. Jing Xingji asked, "What's next?" "What's the hurry?" Nie Wuxiang walked forward. There was a small groove in the center of the protective formation. Nie Wuxiang took out the black gold piece and gently put it down. Boom. The originally hazy light barrier suddenly lit up. The transparent light wall dispersed and turned into specks of dust, forming a white light curtain. Let's go in. Nie Wuxiang took the lead and walked towards the light curtain. The light curtain seemed to be invisible, so Nie Wuxiang went through it without any obstacles. Seeing this, the three of them followed suit. As soon as they entered the cave, Mo Tiange couldn't help but narrow her eyes. The light from the surrounding spiritual treasures almost blinded the four people's eyes. Top-grade vast quartz stone. After adapting to the light in the cave, Jing Xingji glanced around and happily rushed forward. Although the Grand Spirit Stone was not too rare, it was an excellent material for nurturing swords. It was very popular among sword cultivators, and a small piece was worth thousands of spirit stones. But in this inconspicuous storeroom, the excellent grand spirit stone was just casually piled up in the corner. Nie Wuxiang's lips curved when she saw his appearance, but she didn't say a word. In the next moment, with a buzzing sound, a white light shone, and Jing Xingji suddenly stopped moving forward. "What's that?" he shouted. Nie Wuxiang took pleasure in his misfortune. "If there weren't any restrictions, my master would have taken everything away long ago. Why would he wait until now?" Jing Xingji's face darkened, but he couldn't say anything. Nie Wuxiang felt very refreshed and said magnanimously, "There's nothing special about this restriction. Just break it by force." Upon seeing Jing Xingji silently attacking the restrictions with a sullen expression, Mo Qianga and Qin Shi smiled at each other, then moved to look for the things they wanted. This secret storeroom didn't contain any powerful Dharma treasures. Most of them were materials and elixirs. There were even spirit talismans at the soul formation stage and above to ensure that the spiritual qi wouldn't be lost. Mo Qianga gave it some thought and understood. The reason for the existence of the secret storehouse was that after the sect suffered a blow that was almost annihilated, they could still preserve a bit of incense and hope to restore the sect. Materials and elixirs were the foundation of cultivating disciples. With enough materials and elixirs, the sect would be able to grow rapidly. Magic treasures, on the other hand, were different. Without sufficient cultivation, one would not be able to unleash the power of magic treasures. Just having magical treasures without cultivation was like a tree without roots, water without a source. It could not last long. The possibility of them finding a powerful magic treasure in this storeroom was very small. However, the materials in this storeroom were all rare top-quality materials. This trip was definitely a huge profit. Unfortunately, there were restrictions around these materials, so he could only take one or two. Before long, Qin Shi took a fancy to a piece of Xian Fire Jade essence. This piece of Xian Fire Jade essence was 2 feet high. It was fiery red and crystal clear. Although it was half a foot long, he could still clearly see the scene on the other side. Xian Fire Jade essence was a top-grade material used to refine fire attribute magic treasures. Back then, a piece of Xian Fire Jade essence produced in Immortal's ruins almost caused many nascent soul cultivators to fight for it. Even Master Song Feng took action, which showed how precious it was. The quality of this piece of Xian Fire Jade essence was similar to the one produced in Immortal's ruins, but its size was several times bigger. Qin Shi summoned the 3-yang real fire sword and said to Mo Qianga, "You look for it first. If you see something you like, call me." Mo Qianga nodded and walked away alone. Although there were many materials in this storeroom, there was nothing she particularly wanted. She had decided not to refine other offensive magic treasures. She had the Fan of Heaven and Earth and the Fuxing sword in her hands, as well as the Great Heavenly Thunder technique. Although auxiliary magic treasures were damaged by the heavenly tribulation, they could be repaired, so there was no need to refine them. As for medicinal pills, that was what she lacked the least. A moment later, she stopped in front of an item. It was a crystal the size of a fist. It was transparent and looked like a crystal. At first glance, it was a solid object, but when she stared at it carefully, she saw that it seemed to have water ripples. After staring at it for a while, she saw a dense mist. The strangest thing was that this thing actually didn't have spiritual aura. Could it be an ordinary object? Mo Qianga muttered. She looked left and right and shook her head. This thing couldn't be an ordinary object. The restrictions around it were even more advanced than those of those precious materials, so how could it be an ordinary object? After looking at it for a while, Qin Shi didn't find anything she particularly wanted. He took out the Xian Fire Jade essence and came over. "How is it?" Mo Qianga pointed at the crystal and said, "Can you recognize this thing?" Qin Shi looked at it for a while, but he still couldn't figure it out. "What's this? Why is it so strange? It doesn't look like a material from the cultivation world at all." Mo Qianga thought for a while, then said, "Let's take this thing away. Even we can't recognize it, so it must be extremely precious." Qin Shi had no objection. He once again summoned the 3-yang real fire sword and attacked the restrictions. The two of them worked together. They originally thought they would be able to break the restrictions very quickly, but unexpectedly, the strength of the restrictions was beyond their imagination. After struggling for a whole hour, they only managed to make a crack. When they got the crystal, Nie Wuxiang suddenly said vigilantly, "Someone's coming." Upon hearing this, Mo Qianga, Qin Shi, and Jing Xingji stopped at the same time and turned around. Nie Wuxiang explained, "I hid devil aura on the road and I sensed someone passing by. It's them." Jing Xingji took back his flying sword. Can your devil aura sense their cultivation levels? Nie Wuxiang shook her head. No, but I can sense that there are 3 of them. The 4 people looked at each other. In the end, Qin Shi said, it seems your guess is correct. Then what should we do now? Nie Wuxiang looked at them. To be honest, I haven't advanced to the nascent soul realm for long, so I don't have the slightest confidence in facing a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. Mo Chenga pondered for a while, then asked, then should we hide? Jing Xingji nodded, then looked at Nie Wuxiang. We're here to look for treasures. There's no need to clash with them. Qin Shi also nodded. Although there were many treasures here, it wasn't to the point of risking their lives. It would be fine if those 3 people were willing to coexist peacefully, but they might think that a late-stage nascent soul cultivator could kill all of them. Seeing that the 3 of them agreed, Nie Wuxiang didn't hesitate. Then let's go. She then turned around and walked towards the entrance. Where's your cultivation technique? Before they left, Mo Chenga sent a voice transmission to her. Did you get it just now? Nie Wuxiang turned her head. Her gaze seemed to be moved and grateful. She said, you'll know in a moment. The 4 of them left the storehouse. Nie Wuxiang closed the protective formation with a piece of black gold and led them around the karst cave. Soon they left. Before long, Devil Monarch Night Frost took Tian Xian and Hong Xiao to the storehouse. After studying it for a while, he opened the protective formation and entered the storehouse. We're so close. Won't we be discovered? Jing Xingji couldn't help but ask as they walked in the karst cave. It's fine, Nie Wuxiang said. There's a formation in the storehouse that forbids divine senses. Once we leave the storehouse, the rock formations in this karst cave are also strange. Even late-stage nascent soul cultivators won't be able to discover us unless they're very close. The 4 of them walked deeper and deeper into the karst cave. Gradually, the air seemed to be filled with a murderous aura. Where are we? Qin Shi asked. Nie Wuxiang paused for a moment, then answered, I'm going to look for a cultivation technique. You guys can stay here if you want. Generally speaking, things like cultivation techniques were one of cultivators' secrets, and they definitely wouldn't be told to others. Upon hearing that Nie Wuxiang was going to look for a cultivation technique, Qin Shi hesitated for a moment. He wanted to say that they wouldn't go with her, but from what Nie Wuxiang said, it seemed like she didn't mind them going with her. If he hadn't asked, she wouldn't even have told him. He glanced at Mo Chenga, but when he saw her contemplating, he asked through voice transmission, what's wrong? Mo Chenga raised her head to look at him, then answered through voice transmission. I suspect the place she went to look for cultivation techniques is also a 5-spirit sacrificial temple. Qin Shi looked puzzled. Why? She cultivates the primordial devil great technique, Mo Chenga said simply. Once she said that, Qin Shi immediately understood. Mo Chenga once told him about the relationship between the sacrificial temple and the primordial devil great technique. He also had a stone tablet he obtained from Mei Feng, so it was very likely related to the primordial devil great technique. Since Nie Wuxiang cultivated the primordial devil great technique, her cultivation technique most likely came from the sacrificial temple, so she naturally had to go there to look for it. But her cultivation technique came from Master Song Feng? Mo Chenga nodded. Correct. Upon hearing her answer, Qin Shi shook his head. I'm afraid she won't gain anything from this trip. Mo Chenga paused for a moment but didn't say anything to refute. When she heard Nie Wuxiang said she was going to look for a cultivation technique, this thought appeared in her mind. Since Master Song Feng obtained his cultivation technique here, the stone tablet should have been taken away by him. No matter how Nie Wuxiang looked for it, she wouldn't be able to find it. But this matter was very troublesome to explain. She thought about it and decided not to say it for now. She'd wait for Nie Wuxiang to see it first. Along the dark passage, the 4 people moved forward in silence. The murderous aura in the air became stronger and stronger. In the end, the still water sword on Jing Xingji's back clanked, as if it would be unsheathed in the next moment. Jing Xingji finally couldn't help but ask Nie Wuxiang, what's going on? Where are you going? Nie Wuxiang glanced at him. It's good for you. She then walked forward regardless of Jing Xingji's questions. Jing Xingji had to restrain his impatience and follow her. The murderous aura is good for Jing Xingji. A thought flashed in Mo Chenga's mind. The Western White Tiger, Dui Jin, was a ferocious god who specialized in killing. Could this be the White Tiger Sacrificial Temple? Whether it was the Azure Dragon Sacrificial Temple or the Vermilion Bird Sacrificial Temple, their auras were in line with the auras of divine beasts. The murderous and ruthless aura was exactly the aura a white tiger should have. Sword cultivators cultivated swords which belonged to the metal element. Therefore, sword cultivators had to control metal of the 5 elements. When Gujian sect accepted disciples, metal spiritual roots were the priority. Without metal spiritual roots, sword cultivators could only use their skin and not their bones. The white tiger was the essence of metal. If Jing Xingji could absorb a bit of the white tiger's aura, he could cleanse his sword aura. For him, the benefits would be endless. With this thought in mind, the murderous aura became more and more intense. Chapter 548. At the end of the karst cave, several blue stones were scattered messily. Upon closer inspection, it turned out that the karst cave was cut off by a stone wall. Someone must have broken the stone wall to connect the 2 places. The 4 of them passed through the hole in the stone wall and stepped on a spacious stone path. Where are we? Jing Xingji looked around. If it was just a guess, Mo Chenga was now sure that this must be a sacrificial temple. Heavy boulders were neatly piled up to form a stone wall. The wall was smooth, simple, and deep, carrying an ancient aura. When they stood on the stone path, the vast murderous aura drowned them. Everyone felt their blood boiling as if someone was beating a drum in their heart, making their blood boil. Jing Xingji's flying sword was jumping and even made a clear whistling sound. Mo Chenga felt something moving inside the spiritual beast bag. It seemed to be Feifei. She used her divine sense to say, "Feifei? Let me out." Feifei's anxious voice rang in her mind. "Let me out." Mo Chenga hesitated for a moment, then opened the spiritual beast bag. In any case, Jing Xingji and Ye Wuxiang had seen Feifei before. As soon as the bag was opened, Feifei immediately jumped out, raised its head and sniffed. Feifei? Mo Chenga didn't understand. What was it doing? White tiger's breath. This is the white tiger's breath. Feifei beamed with joy. White tiger's breath. It seemed this was really the white tiger sacrificial temple? Mo Chenga looked at Nye Wuxiang and decided to be frank. Fellow Taoist Nye, is this place worshipping one of the 4 spirits, the white tiger? Nye Wuxiang looked surprised. How did you know? You said so? Nye Wuxiang nodded. Yes, this place indeed worships the white tiger. Mo Chenga and Qin Shi looked at each other with surprise in their eyes. They didn't expect to bump into the white tiger sacrificial temple like this. Nye Wuxiang looked at them and asked doubtfully, "What's wrong?" "I know a little." Jing Xingji pressed down his flying sword and looked at Qin Shi inquiringly. "Is it related to the vermilion bird sacrificial temple in Returning Ruins Sea?" "Yes." They had revealed some of this to Jing Xingji, but they didn't say too much. "Our guess is that this is the white tiger sacrificial temple. Just like the vermilion bird sacrificial temple, it enshrines one of the 5 spirits." Jing Xingji looked at Nye Wuxiang, then at them. "How much do you know about this matter?" "Let me tell you." Mo Chenga took over the conversation. "This matter has to start from when I built my foundation." After spending about an hour, Mo Chenga roughly explained the sequence of events, including the divine beast's remains and the prime devil stone steel. Jing Xingji had participated in the entire vermilion bird sacrificial temple experience. When the time came, he would know. Besides, this wasn't some secret matter, and it wasn't a fated chance that couldn't be shared. Whether it was Jing Xingji or Nye Wuxiang, they were both trustworthy people. So that's how it came to be. Jing Xingji thought for a while, then suddenly beamed with joy. Last time it was the vermilion bird sacrificial temple. Qin Shou happened to be cultivating a fire tribute cultivation method, so he obtained a lucky chance. This time it's the white tiger. It seems I'm lucky. Humph. Feifei coldly snorted. Do you think I'm dead? Of course, only Mo Chenga heard what he said. Mo Chenga smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist Jing, we still don't know whether this is the white tiger sacrificial temple or not. Aren't you happy too early?" "I'll be happy first. In any case, I won't lose anything." Jing Xingji stroked his flying sword with a smile. He didn't believe he was so unlucky. The vermilion bird sacrificial temple was fine, but he couldn't compete with Qin Shou. Now it was the white tiger. Among the 4 people present, he was the only one related to the metal element. Now no one could compete with him, right? Feifei once again gave him a contemptuous look. Its action was too obvious, so Jing Xingji noticed it. He pointed at it and said, "Mo Qingwei, why did you release the spiritual beast? Although this little guy is smart, it doesn't have any skills." Squeak. Feifei glared at him angrily, its hair standing on end. Mo Chenga patted Feifei's head comfortingly and said, "We'd better leave quickly. There's a late-stage nascent soul cultivator here. If we delay, something unexpected might happen." You're right. Her words reminded Nye Wuxiang. I remember that my master once set up an ambush here. If someone came in, he'd know. Jing Xingji's expression changed slightly. So you're saying he already knows? If there's no accident. Nye Wuxiang glanced at him. But you don't have to be afraid. Langtu Mountain isn't near here. Even if my master wasn't in closed-door meditation, he'd still need 1 or 2 days to get here. We're fast, so we'd be out by then. Your master is on Langtu Mountain? Mo Chenga was surprised. Yes. Nye Wuxiang looked at her strangely, wondering why she was so surprised. What's wrong? Mo Chenga and Qin Shi looked at each other. Both of them felt lucky. Since we came to the far west, our targets are the 3 great danger zones. First we'll go to Fallen God Abyss, then Fengsha City. Fortunately, we didn't go to Langtu Mountain first. Otherwise, if they ran into Master Song Feng, they'd have to settle their old and new grudges. Mo Chenga wasn't arrogant enough to think she could challenge the #1 cultivator in the Celestial Pole just because she formed her nascent soul. Enough. Jing Xingji was impatient. Since we're pressed for time, why don't we quickly pick up the things and leave? He took the lead. After taking 2 steps, he stopped and turned to Nye Wuxiang. There's nothing strange here, right? Nye Wuxiang glanced at him, then walked past him. As she walked, she ridiculed him. Turns out there's a lot of things you're afraid of. You? Jing Xingji was angry. He wanted to say something to save his face, but after thinking about it, he shut his mouth. Mo Chenga and Qin Shi couldn't help but laugh and followed him. Whether it was Jing Xingji or Nye Wuxiang, they both had heavy pasts. One used to be a proud son of heaven, but he fell from a high place and endured more than 100 years of being ostracized. In the end, he was forced to betray his master. The other was lonely and suffered all kinds of abuse since he was a child. He couldn't even be a real person. Now that they could joke around unscrupulously like this, they must have gotten rid of their psychological shadow. As the 4 people and 1 beast walked forward, the murderous aura around them became stronger and stronger. In the end, Jing Xingji had to hold down his flying sword to control the murderous aura. Qin Shi was a bit better, but his 3-young real fire sword was also affected. Mo Chenga felt strange. Why is the white tiger's aura so strong? Whether it's the azure dragon or the vermilion bird, they wouldn't be like this. Qin Shi thought for a moment, then said, it might have something to do with their attributes. The azure dragon is of the wood attribute, gentle and tolerant. The vermilion bird is of the fire attribute, warm and soaring. The white tiger is called a fierce god, but it's actually murderous and ruthless. It might also be because the white tiger's aura here is stronger, Jing Xingji interrupted. And Qin Shi nodded in agreement. As they spoke, a huge stone gate appeared in front of them. As the 4 of them walked closer, the mural engraved on the stone gate gradually became clear. On the stone gate on the left, there were rows of people wearing animal skins, rows of ancient chariots and strong war horses. It was a scene of war. On the stone gate on the right, the chariots and horses were destroyed, and the ground was covered with corpses. It seemed to be a scene of war. Mo Chenga shook her head to get rid of the strange feeling and followed them into the main hall. In the spacious main hall, the towering stone pillars were painted with a mixture of gold and white, extending all the way to the front of a huge stone statue. Standing in front of the stone statue, a murderous aura assaulted her face. Its limbs were strong and it had a pair of wings on its side. Its huge head was raised and it opened its mouth to roar. Jing Xingji shook his head in disappointment. Why isn't there a psychic magic weapon here? Mo Chenga collected her thoughts and said, the Vermilion Bird Bow is in the Vermilion Bird Sacrificial Temple because Ice Palace has it. Then where does the white tiger's aura come from? Mo Chenga smiled but didn't say anything. There was no Vermilion Bird Bone in the Vermilion Bird Sacrificial Temple because Ice Palace refined it into the Vermilion Bird Bow. The white tiger's aura in the White Tiger Sacrificial Temple was so strong, so the bone should still be there. This isn't your purpose, right? Mo Chenga looked at Nye Wuxiang. Nye Wuxiang said, why don't you wait here? I'll be right back. Cultivation techniques were cultivators' secrets, so Mo Chenga didn't say much. Go then. After Nye Wuxiang left, the 3 people and 1 beast looked at each other. In the end, Jing Xingji asked, where are we going next? Mo Chenga shrugged. How would I know? Jing Xingji glared at her. How could you not know? The 2 of them stared at each other for a while before Mo Chenga smiled. If there are no accidents, the white tiger's bone should be in the sacrificial temple. Let's look for it. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go. Jing Xingji raised his flying sword and was about to leave. Wait. Mo Chinga stopped him and pointed at Feifei. Feifei's here. Why are you in such a hurry? Feifei curled its lips and cast a disdainful glance at Jing Xingji. It then jumped down from Mo Chinga's shoulder and flew away. Let's go. Mo Chinga called out and followed it. As they followed Feifei, the white tiger's breath became stronger and stronger. In the end, they rushed into a stone door. What they saw was a huge white tiger more than 100 feet long. It was lying quietly on the ground as if it was resting, but it was completely lifeless. Mo Chinga was stunned to see this scene. What's going on? After millions of years, there should only be a skeleton left, just like the Azure Dragon. Why is there a complete white tiger here? Feifei? She called out. Feifei was also stunned. It stood at her feet, hesitating to go forward. Upon hearing her call, it scratched its head and said, "Don't ask me. I also don't know what's going on." Jing Xingji was puzzled. Alive? Or dead? Qin Shi didn't say a word. With a wave of his spiritual aura, the three-yang real fire sword emitted a sword light that pounced on the white tiger. "Hey Qin Shoujing!" Jing Xingji shouted. Qin Shi ignored him. The sword light touched the white tiger's body. It suddenly shone brightly, and a blazing aura hit them in the face. What's going on? Mo Chinga was surprised. Qin Shi had to exert some force to retract the sword light. The white tiger's breath. His expression changed again and again. In the end he said, "It seems we can't take this thing away." What? Jing Xingji looked at him strangely. No matter how big the white tiger is, we have Chengkuan rings. Why can't we take it away? Qin Shi didn't explain. He just said, "Try it." Jing Xingji thought for a moment, then pointed his right hand. The sword light also pounced on the white tiger. In the next moment his expression changed greatly. He clenched his teeth and retracted the sword light with great difficulty. Mo Chinga was about to ask when the ground suddenly shook. What's going on? Chapter 549. Nie Wuxiang rushed over like a gust of wind. Let's go. My master's here. The three people and one beast turned their heads at the same time. What? Nie Wuxiang said eagerly, my master's here. He's fighting with that late nascent soul devil cultivator. Mo Chinga was stunned. So, the shaking here was caused by a late nascent soul cultivator? When nascent soul cultivators fought, the ground would shake in a small area, not to mention they were the strongest among nascent soul cultivators. How could he come so fast? Jing Xingji asked. I don't know. Nie Wuxiang was flustered. Let's go. If we run into him, fellow Taoist Nie, calm down. Mo Chinga pressed her shoulder. You're no longer his little disciple who can be beaten and scolded at will. What are you afraid of? Nie Wuxiang paused and took a deep breath. Soon her mood stabilized. Yes, I formed my nascent soul. Even if I'm not as strong as him, I'm an equal cultivator. He can't control my luck anymore. Her eyes were firm and she clenched her fists. Let's go, she said. My master stayed in the late nascent soul devil cultivator for hundreds of years. His strength is incomparable to ordinary cultivators. It's better not to run into him. Mo Chinga agreed. They came to look for treasures, not to fight. Qin Shi and Jing Xingji also agreed. However, Jing Xingji looked at the white tiger with pity. What about this thing? You want to take the white tiger away? Nie Wuxiang was surprised. Jing Xingji looked at her strangely. Didn't you bring us here to take the white tiger away? Nie Wuxiang shook her head. This white tiger can't be taken away. Once it gets close, it'll be filled with killing intent and lose its mind. Otherwise, my master would have taken it away long ago. Mo Chinga was stunned. So this was what happened to Qin Shi and Jing Xingji just now. So this white tiger wasn't fated with them? Then why did you bring us here? Jing Xingji asked. Nie Wuxiang looked at him as if she was looking at a monster. Isn't the white tiger's breath here a great fated chance? You have a big appetite. Jing Xingji was speechless. If it wasn't for their encounter in returning Ruin Sea, he would have thought it was a great fated chance for him to absorb a bit of white tiger's breath. However, Qin Shi obtaining the vermilion bird bow immediately raised his expectations. Let's go. Nie Wuxiang said, White tiger is right here. No one can take it away. If my master is free, we'll be out of luck. The three of them no longer hesitated. Qin Shi and Jing Xingji sheathed their swords. Mo Chinga dragged Feifei back into her spiritual beast bag, then followed Nie Wuxiang towards the entrance of the sacrificial temple. As they flew, Mo Chinga asked, How's your cultivation technique? Nie Wuxiang sighed and shook her head. Back then, when my master came here, he only sat in meditation to absorb the devil chi. I thought there was something mysterious about the devil chi, but after trying for a long time, I couldn't find anything. Mo Chinga had long expected this, so she wasn't surprised. The prime fiend's steel in this sacrificial temple must have been taken away. Master Song Feng probably came here because there was still pure primordial devil aura left here. Nie Wuxiang naturally wouldn't be able to get anything. How did you know it was your master? Jing Xingji asked. Nie Wuxiang rolled her eyes at him and said, I left devil aura on it, alright? She already said it just now, but she really didn't have the slightest memory. Jing Xingji shut his mouth after being despised for no reason. How could your master come here so coincidentally? Qin Shi continued to ask. Nie Wuxiang was very polite to Qin Shi's question. I don't know. I also think it's very strange. Even if he noticed us as soon as we came in, it's impossible for him to come here so quickly. They'd only been here for half a day and Langtu Mountain wasn't close, so it didn't make sense for Master Song Feng to come here so quickly. Mo Chinga turned around and asked, Do you think your master will definitely win? This question made Nie Wuxiang smile bitterly. Although I hate my master to the bone, I was taught by him, so I couldn't be clearer about his abilities. Even if that person is one of the 3 great devil monarchs in Yunzhong, I don't think he's my master's opponent, or in other words, in my eyes, no one in the world is his opponent. Then you? Mo Chinga wanted to say that wouldn't she have to hide from Master Song Feng for the rest of her life until he passed away? But she thought that saying this might stab her sore spot, so she didn't say it. Nie Wuxiang guessed what she wanted to say, so she said sadly, Fortunately, I'm younger than him. If he can't advance to the deification realm, he probably only has 300 or 400 years left to live. At that time I'll be truly free. Mo Chinga was silent. She felt sad for Nie Wuxiang, but she also sighed for Master Song Feng. As it turned out, that insufferably arrogant Master Song Feng only had 300 or 400 years left to live. If he couldn't live forever, no matter how powerful he was, he would eventually become a pile of bones. As they talked, they dashed towards the entrance of the sacrificial temple. Before long they returned to the karst cave. The commotion from the fight was getting louder and louder. The sacrificial temple was only shaking, but inside the karst cave, stones kept falling. Nie Wuxiang led them through many turns and detours in the karst cave. Noticing that Nie Wuxiang didn't take the original path, Mo Chinga asked, Where are we going? Nie Wuxiang answered, If we leave along the original path, my master will definitely notice that there's another path here, but it's a bit more difficult to walk. I see. The 4 of them didn't say anything else and used their fleeing technique to leave quickly. Boom. A loud noise came from afar. The rock layers shook and sand and stones fell with a rustle. Boom. Boom. The noise became louder. Presumably, the fight between the 2 nascent soul cultivators had reached its climax. Another rock fell. Nie Wuxiang, who was walking in the front, waved her sleeves and smashed the rock into powder without stopping for even a moment. Mo Chinga followed behind them, feeling something was wrong. It was said that nascent soul cultivators had the ability to move mountains and drain seas. However, this mountain was a small mountain, and the sea could only be an inland sea. The commotion now was too big. How could the great ancient sect choose this place as their secret storehouse be so fragile? The rustling sound became louder and louder. Nie Wuxiang, who was in the front, suddenly stopped, stunned. What's wrong? Mo Chinga asked after she stopped. Nie Wuxiang's face was pale. She pointed ahead. The road's broken. Not far ahead, the karst cave was cut in half, and the entrance was blocked by sand and stones. Qin Shi released his divine sense. A moment later he said heavily, Fengsha City is close to Shiling Mountain Range. The mountain must have collapsed just now. If we want to leave from here, we have to break through half of the mountain. It wasn't impossible to break through half of the mountain, but it would take more than a short time. Jing Xingji said, How about we go back the way we came? Let's take advantage of the 2 of them fighting to get out. Nie Wuxiang shook her head. If my master sees us, he'll definitely stop us. She smiled bitterly. I betrayed him and know too many of his secrets, so he won't let me go. Mo Chinga had no doubt about this. Master Song Feng always sought revenge for the smallest grievance. Among his enemies, Qin Shi wasn't a big deal, but Lord Taoist Jinghe only had a disagreement with him, and he still bore a grudge against him. Moreover, Nie Wuxiang stole many of his treasures and ran away. Go. Nie Wuxiang turned her head and looked at the ground. Without me, you still had a chance to escape. She lowered her head and didn't dare to look up. At this moment, Nie Wuxiang's heart was filled with indescribable sorrow. When she escaped from the celestial pole, she thought she would die in the South Sea. She abandoned herself to despair and only hoped to taste freedom in her remaining years. Later she met Mo Chenga in Yunzhong, strengthened her heart to seek the Tao, and finally became a normal person. If she could, she wouldn't ask for immortality or ascension, she just wanted to live happily like a normal person. But she knew her master wouldn't let her go. In her master's eyes, running away from him was equivalent to betraying him, not to mention stealing so many of his treasures. He would definitely catch her and punish her for her betrayal just like her mother. In fact, she remembered what her mother was like. When she was born, her master was in closed-door meditation. When he came out, she was already 3 years old. At that time, she was ignorant and didn't know her happiness was so fake until one day, her master appeared and her mother suddenly disappeared. She remembered. She always remembered these things. After her master killed her mother, he didn't kill her, but he also didn't care about her. She didn't know what death was, and she certainly didn't know her mother would never come back. She cried for a whole day. Later, she couldn't stand the hunger anymore, so she looked for food herself. Many days later, her master appeared again. Seeing that she was still alive, he took her back to his cave. She didn't dare to recall these things, so she pretended she forgot. To her master, she was the evidence of his betrayal. She could only live humbly by his side and let him take revenge on her mother for her betrayal. Suddenly, she heard a sharp noise. She came back to her senses from her memories and turned around, only to see Jing Xingji cutting the stone wall with his sword. "What are you doing?" Jing Xingji glanced at her. "I'm running for my life, of course." She was stunned. Jing Xingji didn't look at her. He focused on cutting the stone wall and muttered, "I don't have the habit of sacrificing my companions." On the side, Qin Shi also summoned his 3-yang real fire sword. He smiled at her and said, "Fellow Taoist Nya, I'm someone your master must kill. He also won't let me off." Right after he said that, his 3-yang real fire sword also slashed at the stone wall. Mo Chenga was the only one left. She patted Nya Wushang's shoulder and went to help without saying anything. Nya Wushang stared at them in a daze. Gradually, the corners of her eyes became moist. "What are you waiting for? Come and help," Jing Xingji shouted. She smiled, wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and walked over. The 4 of them worked together, quickly cutting a hole in the stone wall. Not long after, a long passageway had been carved out. As they were fighting, Qin Shi suddenly stopped. "Something's wrong." Seeing his grave expression, Mo Chenga was puzzled. "What's wrong?" "Something's wrong." Qin Shi said, "There's a strange aura coming from here." Mo Chenga was stunned. She used the soul-refining art and spread her divine sense. There was indeed a strange aura that seemed to be coming from the storehouse. It was cold and gloomy. Just by touching it with divine sense, she felt goosebumps all over her body. This aura expanded very quickly. It was even faster than their escape technique, and it quickly spread over. The 4 people's expressions changed. Jing Xingji's expression changed greatly. Ghost Cultivator. Chapter 550. You've seen ghost cultivators? Qin Shi tilted his head and asked when he saw Jing Xingji calling out without hesitation. Jing Xingji nodded. "I saw them when I was wandering in Yunzhong." Mo Chenga remembered that ghost cultivators did exist in Yunzhong, but there were very few of them and they lived in seclusion, so she hadn't seen them in Yunzhong. How could there be ghost cultivators here? Qin Shi felt more and more strange. It was one thing to put the secret storeroom and White Tiger sacrificial temple together, but how could there be ghost cultivators here? Was this a treasured land of feng shui or a place of extreme evil? Nya Wushang was at a loss when she saw the 3 of them looking at her. "I don't know." If she knew, she would have said it earlier and would have prepared for it. A cold and gloomy aura spread quickly. Mo Chenga reacted quickly and took out the Lotus Elemental Umbrella. The Lotus Elemental Umbrella had a restraining effect on Devil Aura, so it should also have some effect on the similarly negative Ghost Aura, right? The Lotus Elemental Umbrella floated in the air and emitted a spiritual light when it sensed the Ghost Aura. However, the Ghost Aura only stopped for a moment and continued spreading, and the Lotus Elemental Umbrella suddenly dimmed. Mo Chenga was shocked. The Lotus Elemental Umbrella was surrounded by a gloomy and deep black aura, silently but quickly swallowing the spiritual light of the Lotus Elemental Umbrella. She hurriedly took out a Chengkuan bag and put the Lotus Elemental Umbrella back into the Chengkuan ring to prevent the Ghost Aura from corroding other magic weapons. The Chengkuan ring was a mustard seed space that could store Chengkuan bags that used spatial formations. Qin Shi's 3-yang real fire sword emitted a sword light that circled around and turned into a light shield, blocking the ghost aura. After refining the vermilion bird bow, Qin Shi's real fire had completely transformed into the vermilion bird's flame. The vermilion bird was the symbol of light and had a natural restraining effect on ghosts and devils. "I'll block the ghost aura." "Hurry up," he said. Jing Xingji nodded and once again summoned his flying sword, which transformed into thousands of sword lights and hit the rock wall. Although they came from Fengsha City, they had walked underground for a long time and had long been out of Fengsha City's range. Judging from the surrounding rocks, they should be inside Shiling Mountain Range. The terrain of Shiling Mountain Range was complicated. Hopefully they didn't go in the wrong direction. Otherwise they would have to spend a lot of effort to leave. Alas. Mo Chenga sighed inwardly. She had come here to look for Xiao Xilan's remains. Treasure hunting was just a convenience. Now that the situation had developed beyond her expectations, she could only come back later. Speaking of which, it was strange. All the formations and mechanisms here had been cracked, so this should be Xiao Xilan's destination. Why couldn't he find any clues? Could it be that she didn't die here, but died outside after successfully obtaining the treasure? This was not impossible. If they found the treasure here and then turned hostile after they left, then the trail would be broken. How troublesome. She frowned. It wouldn't be easy for him to come here again. To them, ghost cultivators were completely foreign to them. If they were to really fight against them, they had no confidence at all. "Hurry up." Qin Shi, who was resisting the ghost aura, shouted. "Ghost cultivators are coming out." After the ghost chi filled the air, the ghost cultivator finally appeared. That powerful and sinister aura caused one's hair to stand on end. It was the same chilling aura, but the ghost chi was completely different from the devil chi. The devil chi was dark and terrifying, but it still belonged to the human world. The ghost chi, on the other hand, made people feel as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. They were at a loss and lost the will to live. Mo Chinga's divine sense also discovered the ghost cultivator. To be exact, it was a mass of condensed ghost chi. The ghost cultivator had no body, so even if it formed a ghost infant, it was still just a mass of aura. This ghost cultivator's aura was very powerful. It shouldn't be inferior to the nascent soul realm. As soon as it appeared, it went to where Master Song Feng and Devil Monarch Night Frost were. The four of them heaved sighs of relief. It was good that the target wasn't them. But in the next moment, the four of them were stunned. After this ghost cultivator appeared, many other auras gushed out. They were all nascent soul ghost cultivators. 1, 2, 3, until there were dozens of them. Some of these ghost cultivators went to where Master Song Feng was, while others followed the auras of living people and floated towards them. Jing Xingji paused for a moment, then he controlled his flying sword and crazily attacked the rock wall. They had no experience in dealing with ghost cultivators. With so many nascent soul ghost cultivators, if they fought, it would bode ill rather than well for them. However, the speed of these ghost cultivators was beyond imagination. In the blink of an eye, their ghost chi pressed down on them. Buzz. The protective shield Qin Shi propped up dimmed. He made a hand seal and his dantian lit up. The vermilion bird's flame hidden in his yang spiritual bead gushed out and poured into the protective shield. In a hurry, Mo Chenga turned her head to take a look and found that the ghost cultivators had already arrived. Before she saw ghost cultivators, she thought those with this kind of evil aura would be some kind of monster with a green face and fangs. But now that she saw them, she realized that ghost cultivators looked similar to humans, it was just that their bodies were transparent. 4 ghost cultivators, although they were a mass of aura, they still retained their human consciousness. Therefore, whether it was a ghost with a little bit of consciousness or a great cultivator who had formed a ghost infant, all of them would maintain their human appearance. Only those wandering souls whose consciousness had been erased would have no appearance at all. Who are you? Why are you invading our ghost city? After watching for a while, the leading ghost cultivator actually spoke. Seeing that they didn't intend to attack immediately, Qin Shi said, "What ghost city? We came to look for treasures. We don't know what ghost city it is." The leading ghost cultivator was wearing scholarly clothes and a scholar's hat. He held a scroll in his hand, looking gentle and elegant. He was probably a scholar when he was alive. He looked at the 4 of them and said, "Nonsense. Since you didn't know this was a ghost city, how could you coincidentally destroy its foundation?" "The foundation of a ghost city?" The 4 of them were bewildered. Qin Shi said, "We didn't destroy anything. Those 2 people have nothing to do with us." The place where these ghost cultivators appeared was next to the storehouse. Presumably, it was destroyed during the fight between Master Song Feng and Devil Monarch Knight Frost. Umph. The scholar swung his sleeve and said, "Since you have nothing to do with us, what are you doing now?" The four of them were dumbfounded. Soon after, they realized that this ghost cultivator was talking about how they punched through the rock wall. Nie Wuxiang said, "Could it be that this West Mountain Range is your ghost city? There's a storehouse here, but it belongs to us human cultivators." "That storehouse belongs to human cultivators, but it's not yours," the scholar ghost cultivator said indifferently. "When we came here, the storehouse was already abandoned. In the past, when you human cultivators came here, you just took things and left and we didn't care. But today you actually destroyed the ghost city. We can't ignore this." From what the ghost cultivator said, their ghost city had always been here. In the past, when Master Song Feng came here, they all knew about it. In that case, these ghost cultivators weren't ruthless people. Maybe they could talk to them. This fellow Taoist. She hesitated for a moment but still chose to call them fellow Taoist. "We didn't know this was your resting place. Now that we know, we won't destroy it again." The ghost cultivator stared at them expressionlessly. "You said that because you want to leave, right?" She said calmly, "We were going to leave anyway. We don't want to have a conflict with you." He paused for a moment then added, "Since you can become a ghost cultivator, you must have been a cultivator when you were alive. You should know that nascent soul cultivators aren't easy to kill. If we fight, neither of us will benefit, so why should we create more trouble?" The ghost cultivator didn't refuse immediately. Seemingly moved by Shi's words, he turned his head and seemed to discuss it with his companions. A moment later, the scholar ghost cultivator sent out a wisp of ghost aura from his hand and flew back the way he came. Is he sending a message? That was Mo Chenga's guess. After sending out this wisp of ghost aura, the dozen or so nascent soul ghost cultivators in front of Mo Chenga stopped talking and just stood there quietly. This scene was too strange. Mo Chenga felt it was absurd. Not to mention that the appearance of these ghost cultivators was strange, but the origin of these ghost cultivators was already a problem. For so many years, no one had ever heard of the existence of a ghost city in the Celestial Pole. Where did this ghost city come from? Were they originally here or did they move here? According to ancient records, there were ghost cultivators in the early years of the Celestial Pole, but they disappeared later. Could it be that these ghost cultivators didn't disappear but hid here and built a ghost city? In addition, were the nascent soul ghost cultivators so worthless? There were less than 100 nascent soul cultivators in the entire Celestial Pole, and they were scattered all over the place. Great sects that occupied large spirit veins usually only had nascent soul cultivators. Why did a ghost city of ghost cultivators have so many nascent soul ghost cultivators? Moreover, it was impossible for all the nascent soul ghost cultivators to come out in full force to deal with the few of them. In that case, didn't that mean there were 50 or 60 nascent soul ghost cultivators in this ghost city? Mo Chenga was terrified when she thought of this. In that case, the power of this ghost city was too terrifying. If ghost cultivators came out, wouldn't the Celestial Pole Immortal Alliance, which was fighting on two fronts, be in more trouble? While she was lost in her thoughts, she pondered for a moment then asked the ghost cultivator, "Fellow Taoist, how should I address you?" The scholar ghost cultivator's face was pale. He said expressionlessly, "My name is Wuxia. So it's fellow Taoist Wuxia." She cupped his hands and said, "My surname is Qin and my Taoist name is Shoujing. I'm a cultivator of Xianqing School." Upon hearing the words Xianqing School, the ghost cultivator's eyes moved and he said stiffly, "So it's fellow Taoist from Xianqing School." She was curious. "Fellow Taoist, do you know about Xianqing School?" "We're all people," Wuxia said blankly. "Xianqing School has been established for more than 100,000 years. Of course we know about it." "So you're all cultivators of the Celestial Pole?" She asked tentatively. Wuxia's gray eyes flashed. "What do you want to say?" She said, "Fellow Taoist Wuxia, rumor has it that ghost cultivators have long disappeared from the Celestial Pole. As it turns out, you moved here and established a ghost city. You don't need to probe." Although Wuxia's expression was stiff, his mind was sharp. "We won't tell you about Ghost City's origin." She paused for a moment then said, "In that case, fellow Taoist Wuxia, may I ask how Ghost City plans to deal with us? You previously let the cultivators who came here go, so presumably, you don't have any hostility towards human cultivators, right?" Wuxia's gray eyes moved. He reached out to catch the ghost aura flying towards him and said, "You'll find out soon enough." Right after he said that, the ghost aura dispersed from his hand. His gaze shifted and he raised his scroll. The ghost venerable has ordered us to kill them all. Chapter 551. After being accused of destroying the ghost city by the ghost cultivators, Mo Chinga's group of 3 stopped punching through the mountain wall to avoid angering them. There were more than 10 nascent soul ghost cultivators in front of them. No matter how arrogant they were, they wouldn't think they could fight against them with just 4 people. Besides, this was ghost cultivators' territory, so it was better to be polite. They didn't expect these ghost cultivators to fight without saying anything. As soon as Wuxia finished speaking, more than 10 nascent soul ghost cultivators swarmed them. Among these ghost cultivators, Wuxia was in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm, and the others were in the early stage. If they were human cultivators, they wouldn't be afraid. Any one of the 4 had the strength to fight more than one. However, these were ghost cultivators and they had no experience in dealing with ghost cultivators. Boom! The small cave couldn't withstand the spiritual pressure of the nascent soul cultivators. With a loud bang, stones flew everywhere. Before they started fighting, there was an empty space of several hundred feet around them. Seeing this, Qinshi withdrew his sword light. There was only a small cave entrance between them. He could occupy the cave entrance, and even if there were more than 10 nascent soul ghost cultivators, only 2 or 3 of them could fight. But now the surrounding area was empty, enough to encircle them like an iron bucket. Although these ghost cultivators had stiff expressions and didn't look like living creatures, they weren't stupid at all. Mo Chinga took out a puppet and let it control the Fuxing sword. This puppet was wearing a magic weapon Taoist robe and holding the Fuxing sword, which was enough to fight against an early-stage nascent soul cultivator. A ghost cultivator rushed towards her. Mo Chinga waved her heaven and earth fan, and countless flowers and plants flew out of the fan, entangling the ghost cultivator. The ghost cultivator held a white bone stick and waved it without any fancy moves, knocking all the flowers and plants down. Then the white bone stick chopped towards her. Mo Chinga's expression froze. In terms of cultivation level, she was similar to this ghost cultivator, but the ghost aura seemed to have a restraining effect on her magic weapon. The flowers and plants created by the heaven and earth fan lost control as soon as they touched the ghost aura. She didn't have much time to think. The white bone stick whizzed towards her. She raised her hand and a huge rock appeared out of thin air, pressing heavily on the bone stick. The heaven and earth fan could create everything in the world. She also had 5 spiritual roots, so she could easily control anything. Just as she suppressed the ghost cultivator, the ghost aura transformed into needles and flew towards her. Mo Chinga raised her hand, causing a ball of golden lightning to appear in her palm. It rapidly transformed into a dazzling golden net that people couldn't look directly at. She waved her hand and the lightning net met the ghost needles. Swoosh. The sound continued. As soon as the ghost needle hit the lightning net, it immediately disappeared. Lightning was the most positive thing in the world, and it was the nemesis of all ghosts and demons. Wherever the net was, the ghost chi would disappear without a trace. Seeing this, the ghost cultivators were in an uproar. Among the 4 of them, Qinshi's vermilion bird flames were the hardest to deal with. Even the 4 nascent soul ghost cultivators led by Wuxia couldn't trap him. Jing Xingji was not someone to be trifled with. Sword cultivators pursued lethality to the extreme. Moreover, Jing Xingji had a ruthless personality. Once he drew his sword, he dared to slash at anything that stood in his way. The ghostly cultivators surrounding him were immediately suppressed by him. Nie Wuxian wasn't bad either. The primordial devil great technique she cultivated was an extremely overbearing cultivation technique, which just happened to be able to contend with ghost aura. If it wasn't because she had formed her nascent soul not too long ago and wasn't familiar with her divine ability, this ghost aura would have been devoured by her devil aura instead. Not only did Mo Chinga have a nascent soul puppet, but she also had a metal lightning restraining evil. None of the 4 of them was easy to deal with. These ghost cultivators originally thought they would be able to deal with the 4 of them very quickly, but they didn't expect they would fall into a stalemate instead. If they didn't outnumber them, some of them would have been killed as soon as the fight started. Upon seeing this, Wuxia shouted. The ghost cultivators all retreated and stood in their respective positions. Wuxia stared at the 4 of them and said gloomily, "You're all very capable. It seems I can only let you have a taste of the 10,000 ghost soul-devouring formation." Once she finished speaking, she raised the scroll in her hand and shouted, 10,000 ghosts gather. The ghost cultivators all raised the ghost weapons in their hands. Countless wisps of ghost aura shot out from the ghost weapons and rushed towards the scroll in Wenxi's hand. Upon seeing this, Qinshi took a step forward. The three young real fire sword light merged into one and pounced on Wenxi. However, he was still one step too late. The moment the sword light pounced on Wenxi, the surroundings suddenly darkened, and all the light disappeared. Whoa! Muffled ghost cries rang out. The three young real fire sword light stopped in midair, losing its target. Qinshi turned his head to look around and found himself trapped in darkness. Not only could he not see the surrounding scenery, but even Mo Chenga's group of three also disappeared. Ho. Ya. Woo woo. The ghostly wails rang out incessantly. Mo Chenga listened attentively, but she couldn't hear where they came from. She was surrounded by boundless darkness and emptiness, as if she was in nothingness. This kind of darkness wasn't so dark that she couldn't see her own fingers in front of her. Rather, as far as her eyes could see, the void was endless. No matter how far she walked, she couldn't see the end. Being in this darkness, it was as if even light was swallowed up. Behind her, a female ghost with loose hair suddenly appeared. Her long fingers silently stabbed at her. The moment the ghost claw touched her, a layer of golden light emerged on Mo Chenga's body. The female ghost screamed and was quickly swallowed by the golden lightning. The moment the female ghost disappeared, a headless person slowly walked towards her. To say it walked wasn't correct. To be exact, it floated towards her. Behind the headless man was a bloodied, skinless ghost. Mo Chenga felt a chill down her spine. She knew these ghosts were created by the 10,000 ghosts devouring formation and weren't her opponents. She had seen many bloody scenes, so she wasn't timid. However, looking at these horrible ghosts, she still couldn't help feeling disgusted. More and more ghosts floated towards her. She clenched her teeth, restrained the feeling of her hair standing on end, and focused on dealing with these ghosts. The cultivation level of these ghosts was only equivalent to the foundation building realm. Before they could touch her, they were hit by the golden lightning and instantly turned into ashes. However, the ghosts were endless, so she couldn't find time to break the formation. What was worse was that the cultivation level of these ghosts was getting higher and higher. Generally speaking, this kind of large formation that needed many people to activate could be broken as long as there was enough strength. However, Mo Chenga didn't think the four of them would have enough strength to break the formation if they fought separately. What should she do? At the same time, outside the storeroom. Old witch, you didn't come to the celestial pole to look for treasures just to die here, did you? Master Song Feng, who was hidden in the black clouds, glanced at the cold woman in purple. What do you want to say? Demon Monarch Night Frost wasn't angry at being called that. His face didn't even twitch, and he just stared coldly at the many ghost cultivators in front of him. On the other hand, the maid named Hong Xiao had a look of anger on her face. Master Song Feng said, I haven't had a rival in the celestial pole for many years, so I've been very lonely. It'd be bad if I beat you all at once. Let's save it for later. Demon Monarch Night Frost glanced at him with a faint smile. I didn't come to the celestial pole to fight. You, humph? Master Song Feng said coldly, do you think you can walk out of here alone? Your Excellency. Demon Monarch Night Frost cast him a sidelong glance. I'm not from the celestial pole, so you don't need to put on the airs of the #1 cultivator in the celestial pole, right? The black cloud kept expanding and contracting. Obviously, Master Song Feng was very angry, but there was nothing he could do. Although he was the #1 cultivator in the celestial pole, this girl wasn't weak either. She was also in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, and her divine power was only slightly weaker than his. If he really wanted to get rid of her, he wouldn't be able to do it in a short amount of time. Fortunately, Demon Monarch Night Frost didn't target him anymore. He said faintly, fellow Taoist, we have to go out first. You can stay if you want. After he said that, the purple satin brought out Frost and Devil Aura and rushed toward one of the ghost cultivators surrounding them. As soon as the ghost cultivator came into contact with the ice-cold Devil Aura, he was immediately frozen. Demon Monarch Night Frost waved his purple satin, and the ghost cultivator shattered with a loud bang. However, ghost cultivators didn't have bodies, so the power of this ice-cold Devil Aura was limited against them. The purple satin was pulled back, and the ghost aura shook for a moment before it gathered again. Master Song Feng didn't show weakness. The black cloud turned into a vortex and suddenly sucked in all the weaker ghost cultivators. The nascent soul ghost cultivator was furious. He controlled his ghost weapon and attacked the black cloud. Asterisk 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 Mo Chenga didn't stop attacking. Every time a ghost appeared, she would wave her heaven and earth fan. In an instant, the ghosts fell one after another. An hour had passed, and these ghosts swarmed over like a tide. She hadn't stopped to rest, so she couldn't free her hands to crack the formation. She was secretly anxious. Although the spiritual aura and nascent soul cultivators Dantian could hold was very large, it still couldn't withstand this kind of continuous fighting. In particular, the ghost cultivator's base camp was right here. If a more powerful ghost cultivator came, wouldn't they all be stewed? Just as she was thinking about this, she suddenly heard a phoenix cry. A red light rose, and a vermilion bird made of flames appeared in the darkness, instantly tearing it apart. Under the vermilion bird, Mo Chenga saw Qin Shi. She was delighted. She waved her golden lightning to stop the ghosts and rushed toward Qin Shi. Senior Marshal Brother. Qin Shi looked back with a smile and put away the vermilion bird bow. He was still controlling the three-young real fire sword to kill the ghosts that kept rushing over. The darkness was slowly swallowed by the vermilion bird's flames, and light appeared again. Jing Xingji and Ye Wuxiang ran toward them, and the four of them reunited. I'm so disgusted. Jing Xingji looked at these ghosts with disgust. Could it be that when people become ghosts they lose their sense of beauty? They were either missing arms or legs or covered in blood. Could they really be disgusted to death? Although he said that, judging from his appearance, he still had strength to spare. Seeing that the 10,000 ghosts devouring formation was cracked, Wen Si shouted, "Lay the formation again." How could Mo Chenga and the others give them this chance? Sword light and lightning struck Wen Si at the same time. What should we do? After disrupting their formation, Mo Chenga said, "We can't go on like this. They have a lot of people and this is the belly of the mountain. We can't kill them and we can't escape either. We'll be worn down by them. If they were outside it would be easy for them to escape, but nascent soul cultivators weren't easy to stop, and they were in the belly of the mountain." "I have a way," Nie Wuxiang said. "Go back. We'll go back to the temple. They definitely can't get in." Right. Mo Chenga recalled that when they were in the Sea of Returning Ruins, those devils couldn't enter the Vermilion Bird main hall. Presumably White Tiger was the same. Qin Shi made a prompt decision. "Let's go." Chapter 552. Shooting an arrow from the Vermilion Bird bow required a lot of Vermilion Bird's flames, but Qin Shi could only mobilize a very small part of the Vermilion Bird's flames in the Yang spiritual bead, so he could only shoot one arrow at most. Now that the arrow had been shot, he didn't have enough spiritual aura, so he couldn't exert his full strength. If other powerful ghost cultivators came, the four of them would be in danger. That being the case, they might as well rest in the White Tiger sacrificial temple for a while and then plan their retreat. Having made up her mind, Mo Chenga ordered the puppet to lead the way. Although the puppet didn't have the secret techniques and natal magic weapons of nascent soul cultivators, it wasn't afraid of injuries and control techniques had no effect on it. Now that it had the Fuxing sword, it wasn't much weaker. Most importantly, even if the puppet was damaged, it would be fine after a little repair, unlike real cultivators who had to recuperate for 30 to 50 years if they were seriously injured in the nascent soul realm. As for the Fuxing sword, after the devil aura and impurities were removed by the spirit-quenching water, it was definitely a high-grade magic weapon. Before Fu Yaozi left, he also gave Mo Chenga the incantation to refine the Fuxing sword. If she could refine it completely, it would also be a sharp killing weapon. Letting the puppet use the Fuxing sword was only a temporary measure. The Fuxing sword was a flying sword with thunder attributes, so it had to be matched with thunder techniques to fully display its combat power. Lifeless objects like dolls, which had no dantian and no divine sense, were most suitable for pure force treasures. However, these kinds of treasures were only suitable for martial cultivators. There were very few martial cultivators and even fewer of them were of high grade. Wanting to find a powerful pure force treasure was even harder than buying a top-grade treasure. For this matter, they could only participate in more nascent soul cultivators' trade fairs in the future and exchange treasures. The puppet led the way, Qin Shi followed closely behind, Mo Chenga and Ye Wuxiang in the middle, and Jing Xingji brought up the rear. After the three of them left, Jing Xingji looked at the ghost cultivators with a smirk. He took something out of his Chengquan ring and threw it at them. Puff. The thing turned into a very faint smoke in the air. The smoke seemed to have a mind of its own. It divided into more than a dozen strands and entangled the ghost cultivators. The ghost cultivators were caught off guard. Before they could do anything, several loud booms rang out and thunder and lightning intertwined, fixing the ghost cultivators in place. Let's go. Seeing that the ghost cultivators had fallen for the trick, Jing Xingji hurried to catch up with them. Mo Chenga looked back in astonishment. She knew that there was something called the Heavenly Lightning Seed, which was sealed with the soul of a demonic beast. Once it was thrown out, it would be extremely powerful. However, this kind of thing wasn't easy to make, and after one reached core formation, there were ways to break it, so it wasn't common. The thing that Jing Xingji had thrown out was very similar to the Heavenly Lightning Seed, but it was much more brilliant. Not only did it use smoke to obstruct one's vision, but it could also automatically close in. More importantly, it had the effect of freezing one's body. During a battle, if one could toss out one of these, one would be caught off guard and easily fall into a trap. Later he would ask him where this thing came from. The ghost cultivator was locked in place for about 10 breaths of time. For nascent soul cultivators, this amount of time was more than enough. Even if they couldn't fly at top speed in the belly of the mountain, the 4 of them could still use their escape techniques to leave the ghost cultivator far behind. A moment later, the ghostly cultivators caught up to him. They had no physical form and were extremely fast. Even the most skilled human cultivators would not be able to catch up to them. Upon seeing this, Jing Xingji took out another thing from his universe ring and tossed it out. The ghostly cultivators stopped and each threw out a ghost tool, assuming a defensive stance. In the end, the thing just fell down lightly and didn't explode at all. The ghostly cultivators were stunned. Wuxia was furious. She raised the scroll in her hand, and black characters flew out from between the pages, pressing down on them. Jing Xingji swung his flying sword, and countless sword lights formed a protective shield, blocking these black characters. This went on for about 7 minutes. The 4 of them took turns to attack, and they finally saw the entrance to the sacrificial temple. The closer they got to the sacrificial temple, the more obvious the white tiger's breath became. The speed of the ghostly cultivators gradually slowed down, and some of them even looked perplexed and uneasy. Upon seeing this, the 4 of them knew they had made the right bet. Sure enough, they didn't dare to enter the white tiger's sacrificial temple. As they went deeper and deeper, the ghostly cultivators finally stopped. A ghostly cultivator asked fearfully, "Elder One, do we still want to go in?" Wuxia glared at the 4 of them angrily. In the end, she clenched her teeth and said, "Go back and report to the Ghost Lord." But, another ghostly cultivator said, trembling with fear, "If we didn't kill them, will the Ghost Lord punish us?" Wuxia's gloomy eyes turned to him and she said coldly, "You still hope that the Ghost Lord won't pursue this matter?" The dozen or so ghostly cultivators lowered their heads in silence. Wuxia said, "There's the white tiger's breath here. If we enter, we'll be burned. Think about it yourselves, the pain of being burned or the Ghost Lord's punishment, which one is more unbearable?" Upon hearing Wuxia's words, the ghostly cultivators didn't say anything, and fear appeared on some of their faces. There was no such thing as spirit roots for ghostly cultivators to cultivate, and they had very few bottlenecks because they only had the power of the soul. The price they had to pay was that they were much weaker than humans and demonic beasts. Once their souls were burned, that terrifying feeling was unbearable even if they had already formed ghost infants. Moreover, if their souls were burned, their cultivation would also be greatly damaged, and it was even possible for them to regress. However, accepting the Ghost Lord's punishment was also very painful. After a long time, Wuxia sighed softly, and sorrow appeared on her pale face. "Let's go back. Even if we endure the pain of being burned, we might not be able to kill them. We might as well accept the Ghost Lord's punishment." Finally, a ghostly cultivator answered, "Yes, Elder." They're all gone," Jing Xingji said. The 4 of them had arrived at the square where the white tiger was. The white tiger's breath was very strong here, so they didn't dare to get too close and sat close to the stone wall to adjust their breaths. Qin opened his eyes and said, "They really are afraid of the white tiger's breath. They don't dare to come in and we also don't dare to go out." Jing Xingji sighed. "Do we have to do closed-door meditation here for dozens of years and absorb the white tiger's breath before we can go out?" Qin shook his head and said, "Why do we have to do that? Although we can't go out, we can call for help. Do you want to send a message to your ancestor?" Qin smiled and glanced at him. "Are you very jealous?" Jing Xingji rolled his eyes. "Yes, I'm so jealous that you have someone to call for help." Not to mention that he had already left Gujin sect. Even when he was still in Gujin sect, he still relied on himself for everything. Despite his resentment, Jing Xingji's expression didn't show any self-pity. Obviously, his state of mind had been seen through. "Qin," she said sternly, there are so many ghost cultivators here that we can't treat them lightly. Even if we go out, we have to inform the Immortal Alliance to make preparations in case ghost cultivators come out and the Celestial Pole will be in chaos. You mean? Jing Xingji seemed to be thinking about something. Although the Immortal Alliance is fighting on both sides, it's still possible to transfer a dozen or so nascent soul cultivators. This was a big move. Jing Xingji exclaimed in his heart. Transferring a dozen or so nascent soul cultivators for help was something he didn't dare to think about in the past. It was good enough that no one hit him when he was down. However, this was also a coincidence. Now that there was the Celestial Pole Immortal Alliance, they could gather so many nascent soul cultivators. A dozen or so. Do you think it's enough? Jing Xingji was worried about a lot of ghost cultivators. If a nascent soul cultivator leads them, it should be enough, Qin Shi said. Besides, there are tools to deal with ghosts, but they weren't valued because there were no ghost cultivators in the Celestial Pole before. Now that they know there are ghost cultivators here, it'll be much easier. Thinking that those ghost cultivators weren't very strong, Jing Xingji nodded. It seems you're going to ask your ancestor to come in person. Qin Shi looked at the white tiger in the middle of the square and said meaningfully, we can't let others take advantage of it. Jing Xingji understood what he meant and chuckled. Before that, let's refine part of the white tiger's breath first. Once other nascent soul cultivators arrived, the White Tiger Sacrificial Temple would no longer be a secret. At that time, this sacrificial temple would belong to the Immortal Alliance, and it wouldn't be easy for them to absorb the White Tiger's breath. Jing Xingji nodded. The White Tiger's breath was a great fated chance, so how could they give it to others? Of course they had to take advantage of it first. In any case, those ghost cultivators wouldn't dare to come in. However, when he thought of meeting those nascent soul cultivators soon, his face became gloomy. If there were people from Gujin sect among them, what's wrong with you? Amo Chinga asked from the side. Jing Xingji turned to look, but he was talking to Nie Wuxiang. Nie Wuxiang's eyes were closed and her face was pale. Upon hearing Amo Chinga's voice, Nie Wuxiang opened her eyes and said, "This white tiger's breath." Amo Chinga was stunned. She suddenly remembered that the divine beast's breath could restrain devil aura, and Nie Wuxiang cultivated devil techniques. I'll go outside. Nie Wuxiang stood up. If I stay here, I'll be injured even if I'm not injured. Wait. Amo Chinga stopped her. If the white tiger's breath fades, it won't be able to restrain those ghost cultivators. Besides, your master is outside. What will you do if you run into him alone? Nie Wuxiang smiled bitterly. What else can I do? If I stay here, I won't be able to resist the white tiger's breath. Amo Chinga thought for a moment, then took out a set of formation discs. This spirit-concealing formation of mine isn't an ordinary one. It should be able to isolate the white tiger's breath. Nie Wuxiang was skeptical. The white tiger's breath is so overbearing. Won't it be fine if I try? Amo Chinga smiled, stood up, took a few steps, laid the formation discs one by one and embedded spirit stones. Okay, go in. Nie Wuxiang walked into the formation and sat cross-legged. How is it? Nie Wuxiang sensed it for a while, then said happily, it's really isolated. This way you won't have to leave. Nie Wuxiang looked at her gratefully. Amo Chinga smiled, then went back and sat cross-legged. She trusts you that much? Qin Shi's voice came into her ears. Amo Chinga turned around and saw him looking at her. Just now, when Amo Chinga laid the formation, Nie Wuxiang walked in without hesitation, not even testing it. Entering other people's formation at will was a cultivator's biggest taboo. If she wasn't careful, her life might be in other people's hands. How could a person like Nie Wuxiang not understand this common sense? I can also trust her like that, Amo Chinga replied. Do you still remember that we used to be friends with life and death? In Yunzhong, Nie Wuxiang was tricked into the lost cave by Mei Feng to be fed to primordial devil, and Nie Wuxiang put her life in her hands. Amo Chinga didn't think she could fake it at that time. All right. Qin Shi nodded. I trust you, so I also trust her. Amo Chinga smiled. Just as she was about to say something, she suddenly frowned, feeling something was wrong. Qin Shi's expression changed and he said, someone's coming. Chapter 553. A few auras suddenly appeared, moving along the stone path towards them at high speed. The four people stood up at the same time, each casting their own defensive means. There were also four people coming, and two of them were very powerful. They must be Master Song Feng and Demon Monarch Night Frost's group. Qin Shi winked at Amo Chinga and said, Run if you can't do it. Mo Chenga nodded. If Master Song Feng and Demon Monarch Night Frost were still enemies, they still had a chance to survive. If the four of them joined forces, the late nascent stage cultivators wouldn't be afraid. However, if Master Song Feng and Demon Monarch Night Frost joined forces, the two late nascent stage cultivators could only run. However, she thought the former was very likely. With Master Song Feng's personality, he would never share treasures with others. Demon Monarch Night Frost's group already knew about the existence of this storehouse, so Master Song Feng wouldn't let them go. Now that they were fleeing together, it was probably because of the situation. As she thought about this, the people had already rushed through the stone door. Sure enough, it was Master Song Feng and Demon Monarch Night Frost's group. As soon as he rushed in and saw them, Master Song Feng stopped, and the dark clouds surged. Mo Chenga turned her head and saw Nye Wuxiang leaning against the wall with a pale face and clenched fists. She sighed inwardly. She still underestimated Master Song Feng's influence on Nye Wuxiang. With her current appearance, it was more likely that she would stretch her neck and be killed. B****. A cold voice came from the dark clouds. Nye Wuxiang's face became even paler. She clenched her teeth and stared at Master Song Feng in front of her. You've got guts. Master Song Feng said word by word, carrying a bone-chilling killing intent. Mo Chenga stared at Nye Wuxiang. Whether she could withstand Master Song Feng's power or not was the last obstacle for her to get a new life. No one could help her with this, she could only rely on herself. Nye Wuxiang bit her lip and breathed heavily. All these years, she was very free and happy after escaping from her master's side. She thought she was stronger than before and was no longer the little disciple who trembled and didn't dare to breathe heavily in front of her master. Until now she knew she was wrong. Master. When she heard his voice, she couldn't restrain the fear in her heart. This fear was deeply planted in her heart from the first time she saw him. Even though she was no longer the helpless child who had lost her mother, even though she had formed her nascent soul and become a top cultivator, she still trembled when she saw him. Master. She heard her own hoarse voice. Even to this day she could not help but call him Master. B****, come here and die. Master Song Feng's hoarse voice was full of hatred. Nye Wuxiang bit her lower lip so hard that it almost bled. Bitch. She remembered that when she was young, her master often looked at her and scolded her. Bitch. She knew that her master wasn't scolding her, but her mother. But today this word was finally used on her. Bitch. She recalled the year when she was 3 years old. She recalled being brought back to the cave abode by her master and being beaten and scolded day and night. She recalled being thrown into the prime devil pool often, suffering so much pain that she wished she were dead. Nye Wuxiang's gaze went blank for a while before it finally fixed. She took a deep breath, raised her head and said slowly, Master, I'm not a bitch and neither was my mother. Her voice was calm and tranquil. There was neither anger nor fear in it. Although she called him master, her voice was flat, devoid of respect or fear. The black cloud paused. All of a sudden, the black cloud dispersed as if it was blown away by the wind, revealing Master Song Feng's true appearance. A wizened middle-aged man who looked like human skin draped over a skeleton. Mo Chenga suddenly recalled her master's evaluation of Master Song Feng. He was neither human nor ghost, neither Dao nor Dao, neither devil nor devil. He was simply a monster. The Master Song Feng in front of her was indeed like that. If he was a human, his facial features were lifeless, but if he was a ghost, they would fluctuate. With a hoarse voice, he asked word by word, What did you say? Master. Nye Wuxiang stared at him without fear. I said, I'm not a bitch and neither was my mother. You? Master Song Feng took a step forward and stretched out his skeleton-like hand as if he wanted to grab Nye Wuxiang. However, with a soft sound, an invisible sword aura made a circle in the air. With a puchi, it pierced the ground between the two of them and cut the flagstone. Master Song Feng raised his black hole-like eyes and stared at a place not far from Nye Wuxiang. Under his terrifying gaze, Jing Xingji smiled and raised the sword in his hand. Sorry, my hand was wrong. At such a close distance, even an aura-refining cultivator couldn't possibly make a mistake. A black light flashed in Master Song Feng's eyes. Jing Xingji, however, showed no fear. As if he didn't see anything, he continued to admire his flying sword. Master Song Feng's wizened eyes moved and he said slowly, So it's you juniors. Qin Shi smiled as if he was seeing an old friend. He cupped his hands and said, It's been years. Senior Song Feng, how have you been? Mo Chenga then greeted him. The last time I saw Senior was on Demonic Mountain. In the blink of an eye, it's been 100 years. You. Master Song Feng was a bit speechless. If he remembered correctly, he once did something that disgusted them. Although he didn't see it happen with the arrangements at that time, there shouldn't be any accidents, so why did they? Master Song Feng looked at Qin Shi and suddenly smiled gloomily. Qin Shoujing, are you satisfied with the gift Demonic Mountain gave you? Upon hearing this, Qin Shi and Mo Tiange looked at each other and smiled. Master Song Feng was testing them. It seemed that the matter back then was still his proud handiwork. Master, the one who interrupted was Nie Wuxiang. She said faintly, disciple forgot to tell you that I ruined that matter. Master Song Feng suddenly turned his head and stared at her. After a long time he shouted, die. The black cloud swept over and instantly appeared in front of Nie Wuxiang. Nie Wuxiang raised her arm, and a mass of primordial devil aura appeared in front of her. It turned into the shape of a shield and forcibly took this blow. Pooh! Nie Wuxiang vomited a mouthful of black blood and fell to the ground. But to everyone's surprise, Nie Wuxiang just wiped the corner of her mouth and still stood up. Master Song Feng attacked out of anger and didn't hold back his strength at all. It was a full blow from a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. Logically speaking, a new nascent soul cultivator like Nie Wuxiang who had advanced to the nascent soul realm for only a few years shouldn't be able to withstand it. Fortunately, there was White Tiger's breath here to restrain Master Song Feng's devil art. Although his cultivation level was high and he could move as usual, the power of his attack was reduced. Nie Wuxiang was inside the spirit-concealing formation, but her strength wasn't affected. Moreover, the power of that blow was also blocked by the formation, so the injury she suffered was neither light nor heavy. Master Song Feng became even angrier when he saw that he didn't kill her with one blow. He wanted to attack again, but a puppet suddenly flashed over and stood in front of him. Then Mo Tiange said slowly, Senior Song Feng, aren't you too impatient? Master Song Feng's withered eyes moved back and forth in his eye sockets. He looked at Nie Wuxiang then looked at Mo Tiange. Finally he sneered at Nie Wuxiang. Tch, you've really become capable. You actually pulled someone to stand up for you. Looking at the four people in front of him, Master Song Feng felt like he was filled with rage. He hated this Tch. When she followed him, she pretended to be well-behaved and didn't dare to say a single word. But in the end, she paid lip service to him and even stole his most important Chengkuan bag while he was recuperating in the primordial devil pool. How could he not hate her? He hated her so much that he wanted to grind her bones and scatter her ashes. Because of her escape, he lost a lot of magic weapons. For the past 100 years, he didn't dare to take a single step into Kunwu, lest his old enemies took advantage of his misfortune. It had been 100 years. He hid in Langtu Mountain for 100 years and all of this was because of her. For the few hundred years he had left in his lifespan, how precious was 100 years. But what about this Tch? She took his Chengkuan bag and lived freely for 100 years. She even formed her nascent soul. Thinking about how her cultivation level and happy times were all exchanged for his 100 years of being a good-for-nothing, he controlled his hatred. Especially when she returned to the celestial pole and even brought others to his treasury to take treasures. That Tch was just like her mother. But fortunately he hadn't lost his mind. Now that this Tch had a helper, she wasn't someone he could casually kill. These juniors had all formed their nascent souls, especially Qin Shoujing who had advanced to the middle stage. The four of them had joined forces, but his strength was suppressed by White Tiger's breath. There was also that old witch from Yunzhong eyeing him like a tiger watching its prey. If he wasn't careful and ended up being besieged by them, the losses would outweigh the gains. Looking at Nie Wuxiang, Master Song Feng calmed down again and said coldly, What? Weren't you afraid of becoming a devil cultivator? You still dared to practice primordial devil grade technique? Nie Wuxiang lowered her eyes and said faintly, Whether I'm a Dao or a devil, it's all in my heart. What does it matter whether I practice a devil technique or not? Her words made Master Song Feng furious again. She stole his Chengkuan bag and took away his primordial devil grade technique, but she actually dared to talk about her heart with him? Black aura surged and he once again returned to his black cloud appearance to cover up his anger. What a good heart, Master Song Feng said coldly. Tch, have you been happy these 100 years? I'm not a Tch. As soon as he finished speaking, Nie Wuxiang raised her head. This time, there was arrogance and anger in her eyes. What right do you have to say I'm a Tch, Master? Before Master Song Feng could answer, Nie Wuxiang had already taken a step forward and stood ramrod straight. I'm a human with flesh and blood, thoughts and feelings. I wasn't born to be your slave and I don't owe you anything. Looking at the black cloud, she said word by word, you have no right to belittle me. This B***TCH was just a casual rebuke from Master Song Feng. She took it so seriously just for the last sentence. I came to this world only because of the kindness of my parents. I'm also a precious life, not a dispensable existence. My existence is meaningful for me and doesn't depend on you. You have no right to belittle me. Master, Nye Wuxiang said slowly, I used to be afraid of you. When I was preparing to return to the celestial pole, I thought I'd never be able to face you in this lifetime. But now I want to tell you that from now on, my life has nothing to do with you anymore. My life only belongs to me. Chapter 554. She used to hate her own existence before she left her master. Back then, in order to hide from her master, her mother hid in the mountains of the secular world. After her master killed her mother, he didn't care about her and left her to fend for herself. If her master didn't come back, she would either become a savage or die. Fortunately, her master came back. After she was brought back to Langtu Mountain, her master threw her to his disciple, who was also her senior brother. Her senior brother's personality was the same as her master's, temperamental, cruel, and merciless. Fortunately, her mother never offended him. He was just indifferent and didn't mistreat her. At that time, her senior brother was in a hurry to break through to core formation and didn't care about her at all. Other than ordering the villagers nearby to bring her food and water, he didn't care about her anymore. When she was a little older, her senior brother began to ask her to do things such as taking care of herbs and cleaning the cave. In order to make it easier for her to do things, he taught her cultivation and how to read. This was the reason why she was a martial cultivator. If not for what happened later, her senior brother didn't treat her badly, and she could even be said to be indebted to him. Her master would occasionally come out of the seclusion room, but when he saw her, he never had a good expression. Sometimes he would just call her a bitch and sometimes he would throw her into the essence devil pool, making her beg for death. Every time her master threw her into the essence devil pool and watched her struggle, he would yell at her, call her mother a bitch or call her a bastard. At that time she hated herself. Why did she have to exist? If not for her, her mother wouldn't have to escape and wouldn't have died. If she didn't exist, she wouldn't have to live such a torturous life. Gradually she grew up. For more than 10 years she had been submissive and finally won the trust of her master and senior brother, who handed over all the affairs of the cave to her. Her master often went into seclusion, and her senior brother was busy with core formation. Those were the happiest days of her life. She often went down the mountain to see those ordinary Shirong people living ordinary lives. She hoped that one day she could also live such a life, even if she lost her cultivation and became immortal. Unfortunately, she didn't live happily for long. Her senior brother failed to form his core and was in a bad mood. If she didn't do a good job, she would be scolded and beaten. Her senior brother was the successor that her master found after much effort. To help him cultivate, her master would even catch mortals into the essence devil pool to create essence devils for her senior brother to swallow. Someone like her master would actually be so obedient to a person, and all she got was scolding and beating. In these depressing days, cultivation became her only hobby. Only when she cultivated could she get rid of the depression in her heart. Only when her cultivation improved could she prove to her master that she had some value. Master began to send her out to do things. When she first killed, her hands she couldn't throw, but she gradually got used to get. She pretended that she had no mind, that she was a tool to make herself feel better. Senior martial brother has been stuck at the peak of foundation establishment for a long time and has never been able to form his core. Senior martial brother once hoped that his master could help him advance, but his master scolded him harshly. If he needed someone else's help during the core formation stage, how could he form his nascent soul and become a great cultivator in the future? Master was in. Recalling the past, Nye Wuxiang clenched her fists, her nails digging deep into her palms. Her master used primordial devil aura to open her meridians and poured it into her body to help her senior brother. Therefore, master used the primordial devil chi to open up her meridians and infused the primordial devil chi into her body to help senior brother. Because of the pain of essence devil entering her body, but also because of despair. It was not only because of the pain of the primordial devil entering his body, but also because of the despair he felt against his will. To escape this fate, she even thought of self-mutilation. The funny thing was, she didn't succeed in the end because her senior brother lost his breath while cultivating. She escaped the fate of being plucked, but she understood that she was only a tool in her master and senior brother's eyes. She was jealous of Mo Tienga because she also had a master and senior brother, but they had completely different orders. Failing to pluck, her senior brother went to Kunwu to look for a chance to form his core, but he never came back and died in the hands of Xianqing School's Qin Jinghe's disciple. Her master had old grudges against Qin Jinghe, so he was furious when he heard this. But she was secretly happy. Without her senior brother, there was one less person to beat and scold her. Her master spent a lot of time in closed-door meditation, so her life was much better. That was indeed the case. After her senior brother died, her master wholeheartedly took revenge and always practiced secret techniques, so he didn't have much time to torture her. Because he lost his disciple, her master finally regarded her as his disciple. Although he often beat and scolded her, he was no longer as ruthless as before. Several decades passed. Qin Shoujing, who killed her senior brother, advanced to the core formation realm and became famous in the celestial pole. Xianqing School had its 6th nascent soul cultivator and became famous. Her master finally couldn't bear it anymore and wanted to take revenge. She met Mo Tienga at Lord Daoist Xuanin's nascent soul ceremony. Before that, she was already used to this kind of life and never thought about betraying her master. Her experience at Xianqing School made her envious and jealous of female cultivators from prestigious cultivation groups. More than 50 years later, she successfully formed her gold core and followed her master to Demonic Mountain. The short time they spent together finally made her decide to betray and escape. She also wanted this kind of life, to be free and to walk under the sun openly. Then she stole her master's Qingkuan bag while he was healing and escaped from the celestial pole. This was the boldest decision she made in her life. If she succeeded, she would be free. If she failed, she would die without a corpse. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Do you think your life is your own just because you escaped once? A voice came from the black cloud. Nie Wuxiang stood there with unprecedented firmness in her eyes. My life has always been my own. I didn't understand it before. Humph. Master Song Feng sneered. He was obviously angry. After laughing enough, he said in a hoarse voice, "Your life is your own, so hand over the things that don't belong to you. I've raised you for so many years. Which part of your body doesn't belong to me? Your cultivation level, your cultivation technique, and your Qingkuan bag." Nie Wuxiang bit her lip and lowered her head. Master Song Feng continued, "Fine, your life is your own. You ran away, but why did you steal my Qingkuan bag? Why did you bring people to Fengsha City? Don't speak so righteously. Which part of what you did was honorable?" Nie Wuxiang still didn't answer. She didn't think there was anything wrong with what she did, but she couldn't answer her master's question. After a moment of silence, they suddenly heard a chuckle with a hint of mockery. Jing Xingji tapped the sword in his hand in boredom and said, "This is really funny. You're only allowed to kill other people's mothers and treat other people like slaves for more than 100 years, but you're not allowed to steal your own things. Oh my, this kind of person thinks he's a god." Yes. Mo Tienga stared at the surging black clouds, then sneered and said, "If you ask me, how can a mere Qingkuan bag compensate for killing my mother and working hard for more than 100 years? You're lucky you didn't kill someone and pay with your life." Exactly. Jing Xingji clicked his tongue and said, "I hate people who like to humiliate others the most and don't allow others to resist. If it was a little girl, I could understand. Which girl hasn't dreamed of being a princess? But if it's an old man, especially an old man with one foot in the coffin, ha." The two of them teamed up and ridiculed each other to the extreme, which immediately angered Master Song Feng. The black cloud he had transformed into kept surging. Finally, after Jing Xingji finished speaking, the black cloud pulled out a long line and shot towards Mo Tienga. Mo Tienga waved the heaven and earth fan, and a blue shadow suddenly jumped out. It opened its mouth and swallowed the line shot by Master Song Feng. Master Song Feng was stunned. After the blue shadow swallowed his black cloud, it circled around and returned to the heaven and earth fan. Azure Dragon? He was confused, thinking he was mistaken. How could there be an Azure Dragon? Demon Monarch Night Frost and the others who were watching the show were also shocked. As soon as they came in, Master Song Feng had a conflict with the four of them. The three of them simply watched the show and didn't intend to intervene. It would be best if the two of them were to fight. Demon Monarch Night Frost stared at Mo Tienga holding the fan, lost in thought. Seeing this, Tianxian asked in a low voice, "Shuang, what's wrong?" Demon Monarch Night Frost looked at Mo Tienga and raised his chin. "I've seen her." "Her?" Tianxian looked at Mo Tienga in confusion. As he looked at her, he also became confused. Oh, it's her. This time it was Demon Monarch Night Frost who was confused. Do you know her? Tianxian said, do you remember that when I formed my gold core I was tricked into the maze cave by Mei Feng, the Lord of Fallen Stars City? Demon Monarch Night Frost nodded and suddenly remembered something. She was also among them. She and Jianxin were also survivors from that time. As soon as they came in they didn't see Jianxin in black robe, but Jing Xingji and Ye Wuxiang. They immediately understood that these two people were in disguise. However, they couldn't help but feel confused after listening to their conversation. What was the background of these two people? It sounded like they were from the Celestial Pole, but how could they know so much about Yunzhong and the auction? Alright. Yi Shuang remembered. Wasn't Mei Feng killed by fellow Daoist Qin? At that time, Mei Feng wanted to attack little friend Mo. It seemed that it was because of this matter. Shuang, where did you see her? Tianxian asked when she didn't speak. Returning Ruins Sea, Demon Monarch Night Frost said, you haven't seen her but you must have heard of her. The matter of returning Ruins Sea wasn't a secret to the high-level cultivators in Yunzhong. Tianxian thought for a moment and remembered, then exclaimed in shock, it's her. Yes. Devil Monarch Night Frost nodded slowly and stared at Mo Chenga. Little friend Mo isn't simple. As a core formation cultivator, she stirred up a mess in Yunzhong, formed her nascent soul and returned to the Celestial Pole. Demon Monarch Night Frost snorted coldly. She was a cultivator in Yunzhong. Now that the one-leaf island in Yunzhong no longer existed, she was also affected, and the main culprit was this woman in front of her. How could she have a good impression of Mo Chenga? However, she couldn't touch her this time. Not to mention she had several nascent soul companions, but this was the Celestial Pole, so she couldn't act rashly. Little friend Mo should be a disciple of a large sect or clan in the Celestial Pole. If she was touched and attracted some extraordinary people, it would be bad. If there was a chance later, she'd just have to make her suffer. That was what Demon Monarch Night Frost thought. Chapter 555. The fiery red sword light hovered above the four people's heads for a while before it finally returned to his arm. Qin Shi stared at Master Song Feng and said faintly, Senior Song Feng, you can't use your full strength here. He didn't attack, but he didn't hide his intention to show off. Master Song Feng didn't say anything or attack. He was irritable but he wasn't stupid. He had enmity with so many nascent soul cultivators in the Celestial Pole, but he could live well until now because he was strong but also because he was smart enough. He knew when he could take advantage of others and when he should stop. White Tiger's breath restrained his devil aura. He didn't dare to come here until he entered the nascent soul realm after cultivating primordial devil great technique, and he could move normally only after he advanced to the middle stage. Here he could only use 70% of his strength at most. Those juniors had all formed their nascent souls, especially Qin Shoujing who had advanced to the middle stage. Besides, there was also the old witch from Yunzhong eyeing them covetously. If they fought, wouldn't that be exactly what she wanted? With that thought in mind, Master Song Feng said, Humph. When this is over, I'll deal with you. He then found a corner to rest and recuperate. Seeing this, the four people secretly sighed in relief. Although each of them had formed their nascent souls, they were still afraid of facing the number one cultivator in the Celestial Pole who had accumulated power for hundreds of years. If they really fought, they might not necessarily lose. At the very least, Qin Shi felt that if he could use the Vermilion Bird Bow, he would be seriously injured even if he could withstand it. Seeing this, Mo Chenga secretly passed a bottle of medicinal pills to Nye Wuxiang. Quickly heal yourself. Nye Wuxiang forced a smile and pushed it back. No need. Healing medicinal pills had a certain effect on devil cultivators, but primordial devil aura wasn't the same. For her, even if she only had one breath left, she could still recover. Just as she was about to take a good rest, she suddenly saw someone coming from another corner. Right now there were 3 parties in the sacrificial temple. One party was the 4 of them, one party was Master Song Feng, and the last party was Devil Monarch Night Frost and the 2 devil cultivators. In terms of strength, the 3 parties were about the same, forming a balanced situation where no one could attack at will. The 4 of them couldn't reconcile with Master Song Feng. As for Devil Monarch Night Frost, although they didn't have any grudges, they didn't dare to trust him. At this moment, the one walking towards them was the maid, Hong Xiao. 10 feet away from them, Hong Xiao stopped and bowed. This servant is Hong Xiao. Under the orders of my city lord, I invite everyone here for a chat. With Night Frost Demon Monarch here, Hong Xiao restrained her emotions and politely invited him. Qin glanced in that direction. Demon Monarch Night Frost was still expressionless, but he gave him a slight nod. Before he could say anything, Jing Xingji interrupted. If you want to chat, just come over. Why do you want us to go over? Hong Xiao lowered her eyes and said, My city lord is only here for one item. As for the other items, she will not fight with you. Everyone please be at ease. Right after she finished speaking, Mo Tiange said, Miss Hong Xiao, you almost took my life the first time we met. Hearing this, Hong Xiao smiled embarrassedly, not knowing what to say. She was Devil Monarch Night Frost's maid, but in fact she was equivalent to his disciple. There were many people in the city lord's mansion who took care of those mundane matters, so she didn't need to do them. She only needed to deal with some things that were inconvenient for Devil Monarch Night Frost, and these things were usually paved by someone else. On the other side, Devil Monarch Night Frost finally came. Unlike progenitor Miao Ing, this late-stage nascent soul great cultivator still maintained the appearance of a 17 or 18-year-old girl. She was young and beautiful. If she hit her cultivation level and appeared in front of others, she would probably be regarded as a junior who had just stepped on the path to immortality. Fellow Taoist Mo, Devil Monarch Night Frost's gaze fell on Mo Tiange first. I didn't expect you to form your nascent soul after we parted at the Sea of Returning Ruins. Mo Tiange smiled slightly. Nie Wuxiang told her that her deeds had spread throughout Yunzhong, so Devil Monarch Night Frost naturally knew she had formed her nascent soul. However, since Devil Monarch Night Frost was so polite to her as a late-stage nascent soul great cultivator, she had to give him some face. Mo Tiange stood up and saluted him. Senior Night Frost, long time no see. You're still as elegant as ever. She's just an old witch. What's there to talk about elegant? Devil Monarch Night Frost said faintly, then looked at Qin Shi. Fellow Taoist Qin. Qin Shi returned the salute. Fellow Taoist Night Frost. Devil Monarch Night Frost glanced at Jing Xingji and Nie Wuxiang, then asked, How should I address you too? Jing Xingji chuckled. I'm Jing Xingji. Greetings, fellow Taoist Night Frost. Seeing his frivolous attitude, Tianxian snorted coldly. Devil Monarch Night Frost turned a blind eye to him and looked at Nie Wuxiang. Nie Wuxiang sat cross-legged inside the spirit-concealing formation and said, I'm Nie Wuxiang. I'm injured. Please forgive me, fellow Taoist. If a late-stage nascent soul cultivator took the initiative to talk to an early-stage nascent soul cultivator, who wouldn't be flattered? Nie Wuxiang's behavior could be said to be rude. Devil Monarch Night Frost didn't mind. He nodded lightly, then pointed to the two people beside him. This is my disciple Tianxian and my maid Hong Xiao. After greeting them, Devil Monarch Night Frost said, Fellow Taoists, you don't mind us coming uninvited, do you? Qin Shi smiled and said, How could I dare? Fellow Taoist, if you have any advice, please say it directly. Night Frost Demon Monarch glanced at Master Song Feng in the other corner and said, I don't dare to give advice. I just want to make it clear to fellow Taoists that we didn't come here with the intention of becoming enemies with you. Is that so? Mo Tiange smiled and glanced at Tianxian and Hong Xiao. Devil Monarch Night Frost understood her meaning, but he said, Fellow Taoists have some disagreements with that fellow Taoist Song Feng. Presumably you don't want to have a conflict with us, right? Mo Tiange withdrew her gaze and didn't say anything. Devil Monarch Night Frost was a late-stage nascent soul cultivator, so he didn't lower himself to explain to them. Instead, he spoke in a domineering manner. Mo Tiange knew he was right, but if they showed weakness easily, they would be at a disadvantage if they continued talking. Qin Shi chuckled and said, What fellow Taoist said is reasonable. It seems you also think so? Devil Monarch Night Frost paused and looked at them meaningfully. Yes, we didn't come here from thousands of miles away to fight. Qin Shi nodded and said, Since that's the case, fellow Taoist, you might as well speak your mind. Devil Monarch Night Frost said, We came here for one thing. As long as fellow Taoists don't fight with us, we won't be your enemy. Qin Shi had heard about this from Hong Xiao, so he smiled. If it has nothing to do with us, we naturally won't fight for it. He didn't say anything definite. There were some things they could give up, but there were some things they couldn't. It should have nothing to do with you. Yi Shuang's lips curved slightly, revealing a smile. She was a very beautiful woman. Although she was a devil cultivator, she had a cold demeanor like snow. In addition, Devil Monarch Night Frost paused and looked at Master Song Feng. Fellow Taoists, what do you think of those ghost cultivators? Mo Tiange's gaze also turned to Master Song Feng. They didn't put up a soundproof barrier when they talked here, so Master Song Feng must have heard them clearly. However, he didn't move at all. He just turned into a black cloud and curled up in a corner to recuperate. Qin, she pondered for a moment, then asked, "Excuse me, how many ghost cultivators besieged you and what are their cultivation levels?" Devil Monarch Night Frost glanced at Tianxian and said, "More than 20 people, including 2 late-stage nascent soul ghost cultivators." His face was expressionless, but his pale blue face seemed to have a glimmer of light. Emo Chenga frowned. In that case, didn't they dispatch 40 nascent soul ghost cultivators? Hearing this number, Jing Xingji also frowned. What's the origin of this ghost city? Why are there so many ghost cultivators hiding here? 40 nascent soul cultivators was a shocking number in Yunzhong. There were only about 100 nascent soul cultivators in the entire Yunzhong. This ghost city had mobilized 40 nascent soul ghost cultivators just to kill them. How many nascent soul ghost cultivators were there in total? At least half of them, right? Don't tell me your celestial pole doesn't know there's a ghost city here? Tianxian said. His tone was full of doubt and contempt, which made Emo Chenga feel very unhappy. Although Emo Chenga didn't like his tone, she still said calmly, "The celestial pole is different from Yunzhong. Almost all the cultivators in the celestial pole are concentrated in Kunwu. There are neither spiritual lands nor spiritual objects in the westernmost desert, so naturally no cultivators set foot there." Tianxian snorted and didn't say anything else. Qin, she went on to say, 40 nascent soul ghost cultivators, and there might be other ghost cultivators in the ghost city. If they block the exit, we only have 8 people. We can't fight them at all. Fellow Daoist, Qin is right. Devil Monarch Night Frost glanced at Master Song Feng again. In this case, we can only be trapped here if we go our own way. Qin, she smiled. Fellow Daoist Night Frost, you mean? Naturally, we'll leave together. The black cloud finally moved, and Master Song Feng's voice came from inside. Old witch, you don't need to test me. I certainly don't want to be trapped here. Devil Monarch Night Frost raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "I'm not talking to you." Master Song Feng snorted. Since that's the case, don't blame me for not helping. Devil Monarch Night Frost didn't care at all. If he didn't help, they couldn't get out. It would be strange if he didn't help. Qin, she glanced at Master Song Feng and said, "We can't defeat the 40 ghost cultivators in the ghost city, let alone all the ghost cultivators in the ghost city. How can we get out?" Devil Monarch Night Frost said, "Where there's a will, there's a way. Whether we can get out or not is still uncertain." Qin, she exchanged glances with Emo Chenga and said, "Fellow Daoist, do you have an idea?" "Yes." Devil Monarch Night Frost turned to look at Hong Xiao. "This maid of mine has a strange secret technique. She can go and explore." Emo Chenga was stunned and asked, "You can enter the ghost city?" After receiving Devil Monarch Night Frost's signal, Hong Xiao said, "Yes, I have a secret technique that allows my primordial spirit to leave its body and sneak into the ghost city." Primordial spirit leaving its body? Emo Chenga and the others were astonished. Even Ye Wuxiang, who was regulating her breath and healing her injuries, opened her eyes. 4 nascent soul cultivators like them, their primordial spirits already possessed power, but their primordial spirits were still far from being able to leave their bodies. Even if they reached the deification realm, their primordial spirits still couldn't leave their bodies. This kind of secret technique was unheard of. Emo Chenga was vigilant. This Hong Xiao's strength was average, but she had this kind of secret technique, so she couldn't be underestimated. Chapter 556. As expected, Hong Xiao's primordial spirit left her body under the protection of Demon Monarch Night Frost and Tianxian. It would probably take several days for her to wake up. Emo Chenga looked at the 3 of them thoughtfully. Among the 4 of them, Nye Wuxiang's injuries weren't light, and Qin, she consumed a lot of vermilion bird's flames to break the 10,000 ghost soul-devouring formation. One of them was healing and the other was adjusting his breath. Jing Xingji and Emo Chenga only consumed some spiritual aura, so they recovered quickly. Seeing her like this, Jing Xingji came over and asked, "What are you looking at?" Emo Chenga rubbed her chin and said, "Why do I feel like there's something strange about that master and disciple?" Jing Xingji followed her gaze. Demon Monarch Night Frost and Tianxian were talking about something, but they couldn't hear it because of the soundproof barrier. However, both of them noticed the subtle feeling in their expressions. Jing Xingji chuckled. Interesting. Interesting. What's interesting? Emo Chenga ignored his frivolous tone. I've heard that master and disciple eventually became husband and wife. Cultivators like us never cared about these so-called seniority. However, I've never seen a nascent soul female cultivator have anything to do with her disciple, let alone a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. Cultivation talent had nothing to do with gender, but because men were superior to women in the secular world, women had fewer chances to become cultivators than men, so there were fewer female cultivators than male cultivators. Because most women weren't good at fights of magical powers, there were fewer female cultivators in the end than male cultivators. Therefore, every female cultivator who became a nascent soul cultivator was an elite among elites. Take Hong Xiao for example. She wasn't good enough for them, but she was stronger than most ordinary nascent soul cultivators. Therefore, female cultivators who cultivated to the nascent soul realm rarely chose a man with a lower cultivation level as their partner because of their excellence, unless they became Dao companions when they were young. There was an example of this in the Celestial Pole. The Luan Feng immortal couple from the Biyun sect became Dao companions when they were in the foundation building realm. Now, both of them were in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm, but Ding Wan's cultivation level was higher than Feng Zhao's. But this master and disciple pair obviously couldn't be. They had been to Yunzhong and knew Demon Monarch Night Frost had become a late-stage nascent soul cultivator several hundred years ago, and Tianxian was her disciple. As he spoke excitedly, Jing Xingji waved his hand and created a soundproof barrier. He chuckled and said, "Do you recognize it?" "Recognize what?" Emo Chenga was bewildered. Jing Xingji glanced over and said, "We've met that Tianxian before." Emo Chenga was dumbfounded. Although they'd known each other for more than 100 years, she and Jing Xingji had only traveled together a few times. The first time was on Demonic Mountain, the second time was to save Tangshin, followed by Yunzhong, where he changed his name to Jianxing twice, and now. She recalled the things that they had experienced together, and a familiar figure slowly emerged from the depths of her memory. It's him. Her experience in the maze cave left a deep impression on Emo Tienga. That was the first time she faced a nascent soul cultivator and encountered a crisis where she almost died. Afterward, when she was recuperating, she missed the sinking of the South Pole Island. It was also because of that experience that she and Ye Wuxiang could have such a heart-to-heart relationship. However, she didn't see the scene of Tianxian hiding behind and taking advantage of the situation, so she didn't have a deep impression of him as Jing Xingji did. After thinking for a while, she finally remembered. As she recalled this matter, Emo Tienga looked pensive. In that case, his cultivation level was still in the core formation realm 100 years ago. Yes. Even if he just formed his nascent soul, this kind of cultivation speed is absolutely top-notch. Besides, his divine abilities are mysterious. Have you fought with him? Emo Chenga asked. Just one move, Jing Xingji said. That sword move of his was beyond Tianxian's expectations, and Tianxian's strength was also beyond his expectations. Qin Shi said he was very strong, and Jing Xingji also said he wasn't weak. It seemed that this Tianxian was definitely not a nobody following behind Demon Monarch Night Frost. Demon Monarch Night Frost's group wasn't simple. As the two of them spoke, Qin Shi stopped adjusting his breath and opened his eyes. Seeing him staring at him, Jing Xingji hastily stepped back. I didn't do anything. Qin Shi ignored him and said to Emo Tienga, let's go out for a while. Emo Tienga didn't understand. Qin Shi didn't explain. He dusted off his sleeves and stood up. Seeing this, Emo Tienga followed him. As soon as he moved, the two people on Demon Monarch Night Frost's side looked at him. Master Song Feng was in the dark clouds, so Emo Tienga didn't know whether he was also paying attention to this side or not. Qin Shi glanced at them and said faintly, let's go outside. He didn't explain much. Demon Monarch Night Frost and Tianxian saw that it was the two of them. Jing Xingji and Ye Wuxiang didn't follow them, and Qin Shi's natural attitude made them think the couple wanted to be alone for a while, so they saluted from a distance and didn't say anything. Stepping out of the stone gate, the two of them walked silently until they reached White Tiger Hall. Seeing that Qin Shi stopped, Emo Tienga asked, Senior Marshal Brother, do you have something to say? Qin Shi nodded, cast a soundproof barrier and asked, do you think Demon Monarch Night Frost's words are reliable? The four of them hadn't discussed this matter. In any case, they were trapped here and couldn't move. If Demon Monarch Night Frost had a way, they'd just let them do it. Emo Tienga said, I'm just curious. They put in so much effort just for one thing? Is it a treasure like the Vermilion Bird Bough? Something that could make a late-stage nascent soul cultivator rush here from thousands of miles away was certainly not an ordinary thing. None of the things they got from the storehouse could meet such a condition unless it was the whole storehouse, but they clearly said they only needed one thing. Maybe, Qin Shi said, I'm guessing it might be related to the deification realm. Mo Chenga looked at him. She couldn't help but smile when he saw her sparkling eyes. He stroked her head and said, if it's related to the deification realm, we have to get involved. Master is already in the late stage. Although they had deification pills, they hadn't heard of some of the materials needed for this miraculous pill, and they didn't know where to get them. Lord Daoist Jinghe advanced to the late stage not long ago, but he still had 500 or 600 years left in his life. If he couldn't break through by then, Mo Chenga planned to offer her longevity pills. With a lifespan of 1,000 years, it was very possible for him to advance to the deification realm. Even if Lord Daoist Jinghe couldn't use it, they would have to face the deification realm sooner or later. With their lifespan and cultivation speed, their chances of reaching the peak stage of the nascent soul realm were very high. She pondered for a while, then removed the soundproof cover. He said, let's go out and take a look. The two of them gradually walked away. The white tiger's breath became fainter and the ghost aura became denser and denser. How could the ghost aura left by 40 nascent soul ghost cultivators be ordinary? Even if they all returned to Ghost City, this ghost aura wouldn't disperse for a while. When the two of them walked to the damaged stone wall, they saw a faint shadow. That powerful momentum undoubtedly belonged to nascent soul ghost cultivators. Upon seeing them, the nascent soul ghost cultivators became restless, but they didn't dare to come closer. They naturally didn't think these ghost cultivators were afraid of them. Ghost cultivators were afraid of the white tiger's breath. The white tiger's breath here came from a real divine beast, the white tiger. Its power wasn't something the vermilion bird's flame she had subdued could compare to. They hid here for a whole day, but these nascent soul ghost cultivators didn't dare to enter, which showed its power. The two of them retreated a little. She took out a talisman from his Chengquan ring and drew some talismans in the air. He then said something to the talisman and forced a drop of his blood essence to melt into the talisman. Mo Chenga looked at the talisman and said, you wanted to come out because of this, right? She nodded with a smile. With a flick of his finger, the talisman turned into a wisp of smoke and flew out of the exit. The ghost cultivators who were waiting were still ignorant. Seeing that these ghost cultivators didn't dare to approach the sacrificial temple, they thought there should be no trouble in the near future, so the two of them turned back. This place was quite far from Shenqing School, and the current situation was complicated. Ordinary sound-transmitting talismans couldn't escape these ghost cultivators' eyes and ears. A sound-transmitting talisman with sealed divine senses couldn't describe the situation here in detail. If Lord Daoist Jinghe found out they crushed the sound-transmitting talisman and called his two senior martial brothers and sisters to come, it would be very bad. Therefore, Shi used his blood essence just to send a message. He wanted to pass on the specific information about this place so that Lord Daoist Jinghe could lead people to rescue them. 40 nascent soul ghost cultivators and an unknown ghost city. This matter must be reported to the Immortal Alliance, who would come forward and send a group of nascent soul cultivators. There was a secret storehouse here, and with the addition of the White Tiger's sacrificial temple, the Immortal Alliance wouldn't be tempted. Although they were trapped here, as long as they sent a message, they would be in an invincible position, so Shi never worried and let Demon Monarch Night Frost and the others do whatever they wanted. After thinking about it, Mo Chenga couldn't help but laugh. When a bunch of nascent soul cultivators from the Immortal Alliance come, I wonder what Master Song Feng will think. Shi walked leisurely with his hands clasped behind his back and said with a smile, I learned this talisman technique recently from the Ice Palace in the Returning Ruins Sea. I think Master Song Feng doesn't know this talisman technique exists in this world. He paused for a moment and said, Master has already advanced to the late stage of the nascent soul realm. With us here, Master Song Feng will suffer a lot this time. However, he's been in the late stage of the nascent soul realm for hundreds of years. His divine power is powerful, so he probably won't be able to stay. Mo Chenga also understood that nascent soul cultivators weren't easy to kill, especially cultivators in the late stage of the nascent soul realm. Until now, there had never been a precedent of them being killed by others. They could be seriously injured or abandon their bodies, but as long as their nascent souls existed, they could escape. To kill a great cultivator in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, one not only needed an absolute advantage but also a lot of luck. Thinking up to this point, she sighed inwardly. In that case, before Master Song Feng passed away, Nie Wuxiang had to avoid him. She actually hoped that Nie Wuxiang could catch up and kill Master Song Feng, but the possibility was too low. When Master Song Feng was in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, Nie Wuxiang hadn't been born yet. In the few hundred years he had left, it would be too difficult for Nie Wuxiang to reach his current realm. Let me out. Feifei's impatient voice rang in her ears. Did you hear me? Mo Chenga had no choice but to open the spiritual beast bag, and Feifei immediately scuttled out. Isn't it good for you to cultivate in the spiritual beast bag? Feifei sniffed and was overjoyed. Hey, you want me to return empty-handed after entering the White Tiger sacrificial temple? Mo Chenga shook her head and said, don't be delusional. Even we can't get close to that White Tiger. At most, you can absorb some of its breath. Feifei jumped onto her shoulder and said proudly, that's you guys, not me. Mo Chenga was surprised. You have a way. Feifei shook its head and said proudly, have you forgotten my talent? Chapter 557. Feifei could coexist peacefully with all demonic beasts and could make people clear-minded, which happened to be the nemesis of White Tiger's breath. Moreover, Feifei belonged to the metal element, which was compatible with White Tiger's breath. Mo Chenga said curiously, what a coincidence. Is this White Tiger's fate prepared for you? Feifei proudly raised its head, but Mo Chenga slapped it down. You're so lazy. Walk by yourself. Feifei whimpered and wanted to protest, but seeing that Mo Chenga ignored it and walked away, it could only obediently put away its tail and follow them. Mo Chenga shook her head as she walked. I'm afraid Jing Xingji will be disappointed. If Feifei was right, this White Tiger's fated chance would really belong to it. Qin Shi smiled and said, he can be said to be unlucky, but in fact he also had countless fated chances to reach this step. He can be said to be lucky, but he always misses big fated chances. For example, the Yang spiritual bead and the vermilion bird bow. However, fated chances couldn't be helped by others. If it didn't belong to Jing Xingji, they couldn't do anything. The two people and the beast soon returned. Jing Xingji saw that they didn't look the same, so he was suspicious for a while before he continued to concentrate on cultivating. He wasn't injured, so what he was doing now was absorbing White Tiger's breath. Every time Mo Chenga stopped cultivating, she would see him sitting cross-legged on the ground with his still water sword floating in front of him. From time to time, spots of light flashed on the sword. It was the White Tiger's breath being absorbed into the sword and transforming its sword aura. Qin Shi once told her about Jing Xingji. Jing Xingji's sword was the nameless ancient sword he obtained together with him. At that time, Jing Xingji was still the outstanding disciple of venerable swordsman Zhongguang of Gujin sect. He was proud of his life and didn't want to be like other sword cultivators who casually refined a natal flying sword and then slowly improved it. Jing Xingji was overjoyed when he obtained this nameless ancient sword, so he refined it into his natal flying sword. The sword art he obtained with this sword was called the secular sword art. It had a total of 3 killing moves, named Gain and Loss, Sorrow and Joy, and Withering and Flourishing. The power of these 3 moves was earth-shattering. Of course, the so-called earth-shattering was after the great accomplishment. The great accomplishment in ancient times was not the nascent soul of today. Even if Jing Xingji had formed the nascent soul, he could only be called a minor accomplishment. Seeing how focused Jing Xingji was on absorbing the White Tiger's breath, Mo Chenga prayed in her heart. She hoped seeing the White Tiger this time would also bring him some fated chances instead of watching helplessly as another great fated chance slipped away. As for herself, she didn't have any metal-attributed techniques. It would be best if she had some, but if she didn't, she wouldn't force it. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Hong Xiao, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Demon Monarch Night Frost and Sky Xian hurried forward. Mo Chenga and the other 3 also stopped cultivating and stared at them. City Lord, speak slowly. Night Frost Demon Monarch pressed down on her shoulder. Hong Xiao stabilized her breathing and slowly said, I pretended to be a remnant soul and floated into Ghost City. This Ghost City was extremely large. According to Hong Xiao, it was several times larger than the largest city in Yunzhong. In the Ghost City, there were unconscious remnant souls, spirit ghosts who only retained their memories, and nascent soul ghost cultivators who had formed ghost infants. There was a rumor in the secular world that in the human world, there was an unknown ghost city called Fengdu. After people died, their souls would be captured and brought to Fengdu to be judged by a ghost emperor before they would be reincarnated. For cultivators like them, this was merely a legend. They traveled all over the world, but they'd never seen a ghost city. It was already pretty good if they could meet a few souls whose memories hadn't been erased. This ghost city, on the other hand, gathered many kinds of ghosts. It was very similar to the legendary ghost city, Fengdu. The highest ruler of the ghost city was called the Ghost Venerable. No one could accurately tell what his cultivation level was. Under the Ghost Venerable, there were 68 nascent soul ghost emperors who ruled the ghost city. There were even hundreds of millions of ghosts in the ghost city. The news that Hong Xiao brought back was sensational. When she finished speaking, the 8 people present were all silent. Qin was even more certain that his decision was correct. If he didn't inform the Immortal Alliance about such a ghost city, how could they escape? At the same time, the atmosphere in White Tiger's sacrificial temple became unstable. Demon Monarch Night Frost's group no longer brought up the matter of cooperation. Mo Qingga's group of 4 also remained silent. Master Song Feng didn't move from beginning to end. Half a month later, Hong Zhao's injuries were healed, and Demon Monarch Night Frost's group began to move. Fellow Taoists. Before leaving, Demon Monarch Night Frost came to them. The 4 people stood up to greet him. Demon Monarch Night Frost's expression was cold, but her words were polite. The 3 of us are determined to fight our way out of the encirclement. Are you willing to come with us? Qin, she said without hesitation. There are so many ghost cultivators outside. The 4 of us cherish our lives, so we won't go with you. Demon Monarch Night Frost nodded. She knew they wouldn't attack together, so she just mentioned it casually. Fellow Taoist Night Frost, Jing Xingji said with a smile, there are so many nascent soul ghost cultivators outside. Isn't it too risky for the 3 of you to go out like this? Demon Monarch Night Frost paused. A ripple appeared on her frosty face, but she immediately calmed down. The 3 of us are devil cultivators. The longer we stay here, the more our cultivation levels will be consumed. It's better to fight while our strength hasn't been damaged yet. After saying that, she didn't give them a chance to ask again. Goodbye. After watching Demon Monarch Night Frost leave with Tian Xian and Hong Xiao, the 4 of them sat down again. Qin she flicked his finger, casting a soundproof barrier. What do you want to say? What did they get from the ghost city? Jing Xingji asked, tapping the hilt of his sword. This was an affirmative statement, not a question. Otherwise, they wouldn't have left the sacrificial temple so decisively. If they stayed here, Demon Monarch Night Frost only needed to use some devil aura to protect the 2 people from being burned by White Tiger's breath. If they left, they would die. Qin she looked at Nie Wuxiang, then looked at Jing Xingji. He said, do you want to do something? Of these 2 people, one was lost in thought, and the other's eyes were darting around. It seemed neither of them wanted to end things like this. Jing Xingji chuckled when he heard what Qin she said. He patted Qin Shi's shoulder and said, are you willing? Maybe you can really get some treasure from them and leave. Qin Shi glanced at the white tiger in the middle. So you're giving up? Jing Xingji took his hand back and sighed. I don't want to give up either way, but I have to make a choice. Did he expect him to obtain White Tiger's inheritance, then go on a killing spree and leave confidently? He wasn't a greenhorn who daydreamed all day and wanted to get fated chances. He had to save his life first. Ignore them, Qin Shi said. I said I'll call for reinforcements. We'll just wait here. He then stared at Jing Xingji. Mo Qingga didn't need to say anything, and he didn't need to care about Nie Wuxiang. His words were a warning to Jing Xingji not to act recklessly. Jing Xingji still tried to defend himself. Can your summoning talisman get out? Even if it can, how can you explain the situation here? You don't need to worry about that. I have a way, Qin Shi said faintly, then closed his eyes and meditated without saying anything else. He lost a drop of blood essence and it would take him a lot of effort to recover. Seeing that Mo Qingga was also staring at him, Jing Xingji helplessly spread his hands and continued to cultivate. If they didn't want to leave, then so be it. In any case, he wasn't Master Song Feng and had no enmity with the people of the Immortal Alliance, so he wasn't afraid they would kill him first. The 4 people fell silent again. Mo Qingga said to Fei Fei, can you really take White Tiger away? Fei Fei wagged its tail and raised its head. Just wait and see. After Demon Monarch Night Frost left, it was very quiet outside. If they used force to break out of the encirclement, it was impossible for there to be no movement at all. It seemed their guess was right. Hong Xiao obtained some treasure from Ghost City. However, Mo Qingga felt strange. Why did Master Song Feng just stand by and watch like them? They did it because they had a backup plan, but what about Master Song Feng? Even if he safely waited until the people of the Immortal Alliance broke into Ghost City, how could he guarantee his own safety? For him, the people of the Immortal Alliance were more dangerous than those ghost cultivators. As she thought about this, there seemed to be a commotion outside. She turned around and saw the other 3 people open their eyes. What's going on? Mo Chenga asked in a low voice. After a while he said, someone's coming. Could it be the people of the Immortal Alliance? The 4 people were a bit nervous. If it was the people of the Immortal Alliance they would be saved. But soon the 4 people were disappointed. Among the 3 people, the leader was in the late nascent soul realm and was a devil cultivator. Obviously, Demon Monarch Night Frost's group had returned. Demon Monarch Night Frost's group came back in a very sorry state. Hong Zhao's tube skirt was almost covered in blood, and there was a shocking black mark on her white waist. Tianxian looked a bit better. His fake hand, which had been hidden in his sleeve, also had a black mark. Demon Monarch Night Frost's face was pale. He had consumed a lot of devil aura. As soon as they came in, Demon Monarch Night Frost gave them and Master Song Feng a warning look and ordered Tianxian, take out the devil breath pill. Then she waved the purple satin to isolate the white tiger's breath and put Hong Xiao inside. When she finished, Tianxian still didn't move. Demon Monarch Night Frost turned her head and looked at him. What? Tianxian said faintly, Shuang, even if we can save her, how can we take her out? Demon Monarch Night Frost was stunned. She slowly stood up and stared at him. You want me to give up on Hong Xiao? Tianxian looked away and said, we don't have any strength left. Demon Monarch Night Frost didn't say anything. She just stared at Tianxian in silence. It wasn't until Hong Xiao coughed up blood that her attention was pulled back. Castellan? Hong Xiao looked up with a sad but firm expression. You guys should go. My injuries can't be healed. Don't say that. Demon Monarch Night Frost's expression immediately became firm. She looked at Tianxian and said, Devil breath pill. Tianxian didn't move. Demon Monarch Night Frost said again, Devil breath pill. Her voice was still calm, but it became more and more determined each time. Tianxian finally sighed, took out a pill bottle and tossed it over. Demon Monarch Night Frost caught it and was about to take out the pill when the sky above her suddenly darkened. A powerful force enveloped her. She waved her hand, and an icy devil aura rose from her sleeve to resist that force. She was about to turn her head when she heard Hong Xiao shout, Castellan, and her whole body went numb. Hong Xiao looked behind her in horror, her lips trembling. Young master. Chapter 558. Above Night Frost Demon Monarch's head was an upside-down cup-shaped Dharma treasure. It emitted a black light that enveloped her. Under the black light, Night Frost Demon Lord was unable to move. The hand holding the pill bottle was tilted. Hong Xiao dazedly looked at the 2 people in front of her and suddenly shouted with all her might, Gongzi, what are you doing? Sky Shen's gaze was heavy. He didn't even look at Hong Xiao. He stretched out his silver fake hand and slapped Night Frost Demon Monarch's back several times. Unable to move, Night Frost Demon Lord could only endure it. After the final palm strike, the demonic aura in her body choked, and her cultivation was sealed just like that. Mo Chenga's group of 4 was dumbstruck as they watched this scene unfold. They previously thought of all kinds of possibilities, but they never expected there would be such a change. What is he doing? Mo Chenga asked in a low voice. Being in the sacrificial temple, the breath of the white tiger had a suppressive effect on the devil chi. Moreover, there were ghost cultivators surrounding him like an iron bucket. Even if he had extraordinary magical powers, how would he be able to break through? Just now, the 3 of them had traveled together and returned with serious injuries. Under such circumstances, he still attacked Demon Lord Nightfrost. Did he really want to be trapped here forever? Moreover, they were not only master and disciple but also lovers. Qin shook his head and didn't answer. Why? Fiend Lord Nightfrost asked softly after a while. She tried to control her emotions but her voice still trembled. Because I hate you. Tianxian said word by word. Many emotions flashed across his face. One moment he was in love, the next moment he was angry, the next moment he was lost, the next moment he was sad. Hate me. Demon Lord Nightfrost repeated with a blank expression. Young master. Hong Xiao shouted sternly, when has the city lord wronged you? Without a city lord, why are you here with your cultivation? Tianxian stared at Hong Xiao and sneered, that's right, she didn't let me down, but so what? What does it have to do with me hating her? Hong Xiao was stunned. You. She didn't understand. Since he didn't apologize, why did he hate her? She had a pure mind. Although she was a maid, she had never suffered the slightest bit, so she did not know the complexity of people's hearts. I hate you. Tianxian looked indifferent. Why did you bring me back? I hate you. Why are you with me? I hate you. Why can't you forget Yi Sha? When he said the last sentence, his eyes were filled with rage and intense hatred. Yi Sha? Mo Chinga's curiosity was piqued when she heard this name. What did Yi Sha have to do with Yi Shuang? Could it be? Yi Sha, Night Frost Fiend Lord said. Yi Sha is you. Why must you? I'm not Yi Sha. Tian Xian was furious. His pale blue face was undulating. Just now, as luck would have it, Night Frost Demon Monarch said sadly, you wanted to kill me for a long time. Otherwise, you would have let me know you have this kind of magic weapon. After a moment of silence, Tian Xian said, maybe. Do you have anything else to say? The truth was in front of him, but Night Frost Demon Monarch calmed down. Tian Xian's expression was complicated. In the end, he shook his head. Oh. Then let's do it, Night Frost Demon Monarch said faintly. You'll be more confident if you go alone. Tian Xian clenched his teeth and slowly raised his silver fake hand. Asterisk asterisk asterisk, that's strange. He killed Night Frost Demon Monarch. Isn't he afraid of being killed by us alone? Jing Xingji said. Qin Shi said, I fought him before. He has a strange divine ability. His body can turn into invisible devil aura, so he's not afraid of being hurt. Nie Wushang's eyes brightened. There's actually such a divine ability? Yes, he can't beat me, but I also can't hurt him. Seeing Tian Xian slowly raising his hand, Hong Xiao suddenly pounced on him. The double-edged dagger in her hand spun quickly and ruthlessly stabbed at Tian Xian. Tian Xian's eyes turned cold. Hong Xiao had just jumped when he waved his fake hand and ruthlessly slapped her head, smashing her nascent soul. Mo Qingge felt a chill in her heart. This Tian Xian seemed to like this kind of method very much. Huaziki and Zhong Xi's corpses were also crushed like this. Even their nascent souls were crushed without leaving anything behind. Red Silk. Demon Lord Night Frost was alarmed when he saw this scene. Hong Xiao screamed. The light in her eyes disappeared and she fell to the ground, no longer breathing. Looking at Hong Xiao's bleeding corpse, Night Frost Demon Monarch was stunned. It took her a long time to regain her composure. Tian Xian said indifferently, I didn't expect she'd be willing to risk her life for you. I underestimated her. Night Frost Demon Monarch smiled sadly. It turns out I'm not a failure after all. Someone's willing to die for me. She then closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She suddenly threw the pill bottle in her hand and made a hand seal. A devil aura appeared behind her and shook Tian Xian away. You. Tian Xian was shaken and took several steps back. He stared at her in shock. Night Frost Demon Monarch slowly turned around and stared at him fixedly. You weren't immobilized? Night Frost Demon Monarch stretched out her hand, and the goblet magic weapon fell into her hand. She looked at it and sighed. The illusory immobilization goblet. It turns out it fell into your hands, but you never told me. Then she looked at him and said faintly, you underestimate late nascent realm cultivators. This goblet is indeed a rare treasure, but it's still not enough to immobilize a late nascent realm cultivator. Tian Xian was silent for a while and asked, are you going to kill me? Night Frost Demon Monarch didn't answer. She said, you said I ignored your wish, but why didn't you tell me you weren't willing? Was it because I didn't want to listen, or was it because you didn't dare to tell me? Tian Xian didn't answer. Night Frost Demon Monarch continued, that's right. I've always thought of you as Yi Sha because you're indeed Yi Sha's reincarnation. If you didn't want to be Yi Sha, you could have told me directly, but you never did. She let out a long sigh, and sadness finally appeared in her eyes. I finally know that you're not Yi Sha. Yi Sha never felt inferior. He's magnanimous and only asks for himself. He doesn't care about other people's rumors. He wanted to say that he didn't feel inferior, but he couldn't say it under Night Frost Demon Monarch's clear gaze. I'm sorry, she said softly, I made you do something you don't like. Back then I made a promise with Yi Sha. If one of us died first, we'd find the other's reincarnation. We'd be together forever. She smiled sadly and tears welled up in her eyes. I did as I promised. I thought we'd fulfill our vow and be together forever. Only now do I realize that I was wrong. Our vow was like a castle in the air. Could never be fulfilled. Tian Xian was silent. This was something he didn't know. I found you and saw that you still loved me, so I thought it could be done. But I didn't know that after you reincarnated and forgot the memories of your previous life, you'd become someone else. Since you're not Yi Sha, how can I ask you to continue the vow from your previous life? He wanted to say that he really wasn't Yisha, but he felt a dull pain in his heart. Was he really not him in his previous life? Night Frost Demon Monarch took a deep breath and said, "Let's end our vow. From now on you're you and I'm me." The purple ribbon rose and turned into a purple light, stabbing into Tian Xian's head like lightning. Tian Xian's eyes widened in shock as he stared at her. Hong Xiao followed me for hundreds of years and she died for me. I can't not avenge her. Looking at his unwilling eyes, a tear rolled down her cheek. She said softly, "You won't meet me in your next life." Chapter 559. In just a quarter of an hour, Demon Monarch Night Frost lost the two people closest to her. One died for her and the other was killed by her. The one who died for her was just a maid, but the one she killed was the lover of her two lives. Nothing was more impermanent than this. Mo Chinga couldn't help but wonder what she would do if she was in his shoes. Would she pursue the next life and be together forever? Or would it end cleanly in this world? Qin, she said as if he understood something, "So that's his weakness." Mo Chinga's sigh was strangled to death just like that. She turned around and glared at him. Qin, she was at a loss. What's wrong? Nia Wushang had another realization. So there really are past lives and present lives. Everyone knew people had souls, but reincarnation was the law of heaven and earth. It wasn't something they could touch. Therefore, past lives and present lives were only theories. No one had seen it with their own eyes. From what Demon Monarch Night Frost and Tian Xian said, not only did they confirm there were past lives and present lives, but they also found the reincarnated people. After a while, Demon Monarch Night Frost regained her calm. She put away Tian Xian's corpse and searched Hong Zhao's body. Soon she had something in her hand. Mo Chinga saw the gray light ball in Demon Monarch Night Frost's hand. A black shadow flashed in front of her eyes and she threw herself at him. Demon Monarch Night Frost hurriedly raised her purple satin, but she only had time to protect herself before the gray light ball in her hand was snatched away. Master Song Feng. Mo Chinga suddenly stood up. In an instant, the fight between the two late nascent soul cultivators was over. Master Song Feng turned into a black cloud and quickly escaped with the gray light ball, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. Demon Monarch Night Frost stood where she was and didn't chase after him. Master Song Feng moved so fast that Mo Chinga and the other three couldn't react at all. Demon Monarch Night Frost only had time to protect herself. She looked at her empty palm, smiled bitterly and put away Hong Zhao's corpse. After doing all this, Demon Monarch Night Frost turned around and walked towards them. "Fellow Taoists, do you have a way out?" Qin, she looked at her calmly. "How can fellow Taoist Night Frost be so sure?" Demon Monarch Night Frost said faintly, "I've only met you once but I've heard a lot about you. Since you're so calm you must have a plan." Qin, she smiled and admitted frankly, "Yes." "Then can you take me out with you?" "Of course I'll pay you." "Fellow Taoist Yi Shuang," Jing Xingji interrupted. "Your disciple has just perished and you're already thinking of a way to get out?" This sentence was simply meant to be sarcastic. They had no enmity before, so he really shouldn't have said this. Demon Taoist Demon Monarch Night turned to look at him. Night Demon Frost of the Demon Frost Monarch. Demon Monarch Night Frost wasn't angry, but he also didn't explain. He only said faintly, "Fellow Taoist, you're not the person involved, so you naturally won't understand." He then looked at Qin Shi and asked, "May I?" Taoist Demon Monarch of Frost Monarch Qin, what price you are willing to pay? Doff of time. Demon Monarch Knight, Demon Qin of Qin asked Qin. Qin of Demon, Demon, of Demon took of. Qin, she took it but said, "This thing doesn't seem to be able to hold fellow Taoist." The Night Frost Demon Monarch smiled bitterly. It's obviously less effective against late nascent cultivators. However, it was not to the extent that it was completely ineffective. My disciple is a devil cultivator, and his blood and qi are not pure, so he can't bring out the effect of this cup. You are Tao cultivators, if you refine it properly, it will be of some use even against late nascent soul cultivators. Qin Shi released his divine sense to explore the cup. He then nodded and said, "It's indeed a treasure. This isn't the only thing, right?" Seeing that Qin Shi had the intention to agree, Jing Xingji hurriedly said, "There are 4 of us." Night Frost Devil Monarch glanced at him, then took out a book from his robe and tossed it to him. "I also obtained this sword art from returning Ruin Sea. It's useless to me, so I'll give it to fellow Taoist." He then turned to Nia Wushang and said, "As for this fellow Taoist, I can teach you the invisibility transformation technique. Nie Wuxiang's eyes brightened. Fellow Taoist, are you talking about the divine ability to transform into devil aura and be unafraid of harm? It's not that I'm unafraid of harm, but I have to find the right weak point. In addition, I have to remind fellow Taoists that not everyone can practice this technique. Although my aptitude and cultivation level both surpass Tianxuan's, I know nothing about this technique. Nie Wuxiang nodded. I understand. Night Frost Devil Monarch no longer said anything. He took out a jade slip from his Chengkuan bag and tossed it to Nie Wuxiang. As for fellow Taoist Mo, Night Frost Devil Monarch looked at Feifei, who was curled up in the corner, and absorbed the white tiger's breath and said, I have something that must be very useful to fellow Taoist. He then took out a bracelet and handed it to Mo Chenga. This thing is called a spiritual beast bracelet, and it can store spiritual beasts. Unlike a spiritual beast bag, this thing can store up to 10 spiritual beasts. Moreover, cultivating inside a spiritual beast bracelet is much better than cultivating inside a spiritual beast bag. Mo Chenga took the bracelet and released her divine sense. Fellow Taoist, you're right. The four of them each got an item, and all of them were extraordinary. As experienced late nascent soul cultivators, they were indeed extraordinary. The four of them looked at each other, all very satisfied. Qin, she said, that being the case, I'll be frank with fellow Taoist. Before long, someone will come to rescue you. At that time, fellow Taoist can leave with us. Hearing that, Night Frost Devil Monarch frowned slightly. There are so many ghost cultivators here. How are we going to rescue them? Seeing that Qin, she was very confident, she hesitated for a moment, then nodded. All right, I believe you. After she said that, she simply picked a corner that wasn't too far away and sat down. Although Night Frost Devil Monarch was sitting cross-legged, her eyes were wide open, staring straight ahead. Mo Chenga glanced at Jing Xingji and said through voice transmission, You don't like her? Jing Xingji smiled carelessly and replied through voice transmission, How could I? No. How could you talk to her like that? Mo Chenga wasn't polite at all. If it were me, I'd slap you to death. Jing Xingji curled his lips and said, If Qin Shoujing died, nonsense. Before he could finish, Mo Chenga glared at him. If you say one more word, I'll slap you to death right now. Fine, I just think she's very fake. Since they were lovers of two lives, why didn't she hesitate when she killed him? She still had to find his reincarnation. Mo Chenga understood a little. Jing Xingji seemed to be heartless, but he was actually very sentimental, so he felt unhappy when he saw Night Frost Devil Monarch kill Tian Xian without hesitation. You don't understand. Mo Chenga looked at Night Frost Devil Monarch and sighed. If it were me, I might make the same choice as her. What? Because he's already fallen into a demonic barrier. Even if he's freed, this life is over. It's better to end it quickly and start the next life. Mo Chenga smiled and said, I think she'll still look for Yisha's reincarnation, but she'll definitely not recognize him. Maybe she'll just accept him as her disciple, or maybe she won't even see him and just protect him for the rest of his life. Jing Xingji's expression slowly softened. I really can't understand a woman's mind, Mo Chenga said softly. After reincarnation we'll be different people. Our fate only lasts for this life, so we should cherish it. After Master Song Feng escaped, he didn't return. Qin, she stared thoughtfully at the stone door. Did Master Song Feng leave safely? Upon hearing this, Night Frost Devil Monarch said, The thing he snatched was the soul bead Hongxiao got from Ghost City. There are countless souls inside the soul bead, and its aura is very strong. With this thing, it can deceive ghost cultivators' spiritual senses. So that's how it is. Night Frost Devil Monarch sighed and smiled bitterly. He must have heard our voice transmission. I underestimated the cultivators of the celestial pole. Mo Chenga said, If that's the case, why were the three of you discovered with the soul bead? Night Frost Devil Monarch answered, The aura of the soul bead can only cover one person's aura. Tian Xian can turn invisible, but Hongxiao and I have to rely on the soul bead, so... Oh. Mo Chenga nodded in understanding. No wonder Tian Xian said he didn't have the strength to take Hongxiao with him. If he gave up on Hongxiao, they could leave safely. However, Night Frost Devil Monarch wasn't willing to give up on Hongxiao, so it became an unsolvable situation. The world was really strange. If Night Frost Devil Monarch gave up on Hongxiao and was willing to leave with Tian Xian might not have made a move. Night Frost Devil Monarch was a late nascent soul cultivator. Although Tian Xian wanted to kill her, he must have hesitated. If he just wanted her dead, he could have left alone and let them be killed by ghost cultivators, but he didn't. The dispute between them couldn't be solved by killing. Relying on the soul bead, Master Song Feng safely escaped from the tunnel. The black cloud dispersed. He stood in the air above Sandstorm City with the soul bead in his hand and a sneer on his face. You'll be trapped down there until you die. Even if you use the 10,000 miles sound-transmitting talisman to inform Qin Jinghe, he can't find you here. Thinking of Nya Wushang, he said bitterly, you're lucky I didn't kill you with my own hands. He was about to turn into a black cloud and escape back to Langtu Mountain when he suddenly looked up and stared at the east with his withered eyes. Several flight lights flew over in an instant, and a glittering white net covered him from above. Master Song Feng was shocked. He turned into a black cloud and was about to escape. Unexpectedly, another flight light appeared in the place he was about to escape. The sword aura tore through the sky and rushed towards him mercilessly. Master Song Feng was shocked after dodging the sword aura. Then, flames soared into the sky, and at the same time, Lord Taoist Jinghe's triumphant voice rang out. Old Song Feng, what a coincidence. You're also here. As soon as he finished speaking, several flight lights surrounded him. The flight lights dispersed, revealing several people's faces. The one flying over from the east was Lord Taoist Jinghe, wearing a golden crown and luxurious clothes. He held a leaf fire gourd in his hand ready to attack. On the west was a handsome young swordsman dressed in a black sword robe with a flying sword as bright as stars floating in front of him. On the south was a taciturn Taoist in plain clothes. His thin face was expressionless and his eyes were cold. On the north was a woman in white holding a zither. Master Song Feng was shocked. Qin Jinghe, Venerable Swordsman Yuanying, Lord Taoist Wordless, and Ding Wan. Why did all these people come? Chapter 560. 3 cultivators in the late nascent soul stage and 1 in the middle nascent soul stage. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying and Lord Taoist Speechless had been in the late nascent soul stage for hundreds of years, and their strength was unfathomable. Lord Taoist Jinghe had just entered the late nascent soul stage not long ago, but he was well known for his bloodthirst. Together with Ding Wan, they were the top cultivators in the middle stage of the nascent soul stage. No matter how arrogant Master Song Feng was, he didn't think he could get the upper hand against these 4 people. In the black cloud, Master Song Feng's mind was as fast as lightning. He had decided to run, but where to run was a problem. As he thought about this, he suddenly sensed something. He turned his head and saw more than a dozen flight lights rushing towards him from the east. Sensing their cultivation levels, Master Song Feng was shocked. All of them are nascent soul cultivators. Hey old Song Feng, look at the gift we prepared for you. Are you surprised? Lord Taoist Jinghe never fell behind when it came to adding insult to injury. The flight lights of the nascent soul cultivators arrived in a flash, and more than a dozen nascent soul and middle nascent soul cultivators showed up. Although it was extremely dangerous, Master Song Feng calmed down. After he reached the nascent soul stage with ordinary aptitude, he became the #1 cultivator in the celestial pole. Apart from fated chances, he didn't lack any wisdom. Qin Jinghe, you're so powerful. Do you want to kill me in one fell swoop? How would I dare? Lord Taoist Jinghe smiled. But I still have to leave a layer of skin, right? Umph. A cold hum came from the black cloud. You want to keep me here with your numbers? You're too naive. Old Song Feng, you want to escape from the siege of so many people with just the nascent soul stage? You're too naive. It was Ding Wan who spoke. She and Master Song Feng had an old grudge and they fought once on Demonic Mountain. Master Song Feng didn't answer. Qin Jinghe alone was hard enough to deal with, but now there was a group of people. Don't talk to him. Let's do it. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying said faintly and waved her right hand gently. The wind feather sword floating in front of her instantly turned into a sword light and rushed towards Master Song Feng like lightning. Gujian sect had lost a lot of people to Master Song Feng, and among them, there was even a nascent soul cultivator. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying had once sought trouble with Master Song Feng because of this, but in the end he didn't gain any advantage. Now that he had a chance to kill Master Song Feng, he naturally wouldn't let it go. Master Song Feng didn't dare to underestimate the attack of a Queen Origin sword cultivator. The black clouds scattered around him suddenly gathered together and turned into a shield, meeting the wind feather sword head-on. The wind feather sword was called Wind Feather. It was as fast as the wind and as light as a feather. The moment it collided with the black cloud shield, it nimbly made a turn and stabbed toward Master Song Feng again. At the same time, the sound of the zither rang out. Ding Yuan plucked the strings of the zither. Like a powerful army, swords and spears clashing, she attacked Master Song Feng murderously. Lord Daoist Jinghe made a hand seal, and Nanyang Li fire sprang out of the gourd, forming a 1,000-feet-long rainbow light that burned towards Master Song Feng. Dao Lord Speechless wasn't idle either. A giant net of lightning descended from the heavens, flashing with white light, and occasionally crackling sounds could be heard. When the four of them attacked, all of them used the killing moves that they were famous for. Facing Master Song Feng, they didn't dare to take him lightly even if they were besieging him. Qin Shi suddenly opened his eyes. After listening carefully for a while, he said, "There's movement." Upon hearing that, the other four people woke up from their meditation. "What's wrong?" Amo Chenga asked. Qin Shi said, "There's a fight of magical powers up there." Before he finished speaking, the surroundings shook. The stone used to build the sacrificial temple was made of unknown materials, but it was extremely hard. Cultivators fighting wouldn't make it collapse. Such a strong shaking, if it wasn't close to the place where the fight was taking place, would be extremely powerful. Judging from the current situation, it shouldn't be the former. Demon Monarch Night Frost's expression changed slightly. He thought to himself, no wonder these people are so sure. This kind of movement means there must be more than one cultivator in the late nascent soul stage. The earth-shaking fight lasted for a quarter of an hour before it slowly quieted down. Amo Chenga was puzzled. Where is the fight taking place? The one who answered was Demon Monarch Night Frost. She said faintly, in Sandstorm City. Qin Shi nodded. He could only roughly sense the location of the fight. After a brief calculation, it should be in Sandstorm City. Demon Monarch Night Frost's words confirmed it. In Sandstorm City? Could it be that ghost cultivators want to come out? It's possible, Qin Shi said. Now that we know there's a ghost city here, maybe those ghost cultivators will go all out and simply come out in a high profile to make us fear the strength of the ghost city and not dare to disturb us. Amo Chenga shook her head. There's a sacrificial temple and a secret storehouse here. Those ghost cultivators are wrong. They speculated, but they didn't know they were wrong. Ghost cultivators didn't want the world to know about the existence of the ghost city, at least not now. After 2 hours of silence, the mountain shook again. They even heard a thunderous explosion as if the mountain was collapsing. Gradually, the ghost cultivators outside the sacrificial temple became restless like a cat released into a group of mice. Sensing the panic, Jing Xingji couldn't sit still anymore. He said, "I'll go out and take a look." Demon Monarch Night Frost also said, "I'll go too." Nye Wushang didn't need to be mentioned. She was safe here because of the spirit-concealing formation Amo Chenga laid, so she couldn't wait to go out. Amo Chenga was about to go out with Qin Shi when Fei Fei pulled her sleeve. "Don't go." "Wait." Amo Chenga stopped Qin Shi. "What's wrong?" Amo Chenga pointed at Fei Fei. "It wants to subdue the white tiger." Qin Shi was surprised. "Has a way." Amo Chenga didn't explain and just looked at Fei Fei. Fei Fei didn't waste any time. It silently chanted an obscure incantation, and its 4 claws slowly emitted a golden light. Amo Chenga and Qin Shi's spirits were shaken. They felt like their minds had never been so clear. Stepping on the golden light, Fei Fei leaped towards the white tiger. The two of them felt the killing intent in the air slowly dissipate, and their minds became clear. This was a very mysterious feeling. They seemed to have arrived in another world. The sky was high, the clouds were clear, the sun was bright, and the spring breeze was caressing their faces. It was extremely peaceful. "What are you standing there for?" Fei Fei's voice rang out, awakening the two of them from their intoxication. This time, it directly made a sound instead of using its divine sense to transmit its voice. Qin Shi sobered up and was stunned. "It can talk." Amo Chenga didn't have time to explain to him. She looked up and saw Fei Fei standing in the center. The white tiger had disappeared without a trace. "Can you really put it away?" Amo Chenga was surprised. The white tiger's body was so huge that the storage space it came with as a spiritual beast could actually hold it. Fei Fei didn't answer this stupid question. It lowered its head and looked at the golden fist-sized light bead under its feet. It said regretfully, "It actually didn't recognize me as its master." "What's this?" Amo Chenga sensed the pure white tiger's breath in it. Fei Fei didn't absorb it completely. Fei Fei said, "The white tiger's power is too strong. I can't hold it, you guys try it." "What a pity." Amo Chenga smiled. The azure dragon bone she obtained wasn't complete, and Qinshi's vermilion bird's breath hadn't been completely absorbed yet. If Feifei really took the whole white tiger, she would feel it was unfair. Senior martial brother, you have metal spiritual roots. You can try it first. Mo Chenga called out when she remembered that Qinshi's 3-yang real fire sword was also metal. Qinshi nodded. Without any nonsense, he walked towards the white tiger light bead. He had already experienced a fated chance encounter with a divine beast, so he was still calm. He didn't immediately try to take it. Instead, he operated the pure yang art and covered his hand with a layer of spiritual aura before he grabbed the white tiger light bead. As soon as his spiritual aura touched the light bead suddenly released white tiger's breath, surging towards Qinshi with a murderous intent. Once he realized something was wrong, Qinshi immediately forced out the vermilion bird's flame to block the white tiger's breath. Although the vermilion bird's flame he subdued was much weaker, white tiger's attribute was metal and was restrained by fire. He only retreated a few steps before he stood firmly. Feifei was disappointed. Although you have metal spiritual roots, you haven't practiced metal cultivation techniques, so you're not strong enough to subdue white tiger's breath. Qinshi had long prepared for this, so he didn't feel too disappointed. He turned to Mo Tienga. Do you want to try it? Although she agreed, Mo Tienga didn't think she could subdue white tiger's breath. She also hadn't practiced metal cultivation techniques. She only had the Great Heavenly Thunder technique, which was slightly related to the metal attribute. Sure enough, as soon as she touched the white tiger light bead, it burst out with a strong killing intent. Fortunately, she was prepared for it. With a thought, golden lightning emerged from her hand. At the same time, Qinshi summoned the vermilion bird's flame to block it for her. What should we do? Feifei was even more disappointed. Fertile water shouldn't be kept in an outsider's field. If the 3 of them, oh no, 2 people and 1 beast couldn't subdue it, wouldn't that be giving it to someone else? There was a loud noise outside, and the sacrificial temple shook even more violently. At the same time, a flame flew in from outside. Qinshi reached out and the flame fell on his hand. It was a fire talisman. He flicked his finger and the fire talisman turned into a wisp of smoke. A voice came through, "Little brat, you're still alive, right?" Qinshi smiled. "Master is here." Upon hearing Lord Daoist Jinghe's voice, Mo Tienga also felt relieved. "Then shall we go out?" And, since they couldn't subdue it, they didn't need to stay. Mo Tienga patted Feifei's spiritual beast bag. "I don't need to tell you, right?" Feifei curled its lips and obediently returned to the spiritual beast bag. Having a master was good, at least it didn't need to take risks on its own. The 2 of them flew along the stone path and arrived at the damaged part of the stone wall in an instant. The ghost cultivators guarding outside were no longer there. Not far away, ghost cultivators were fighting with a group of human cultivators. There were about 20 human cultivators and all of them were in the nascent soul realm. Although they weren't as many as ghost cultivators, their magic weapons were much more powerful, so the battle was temporarily tied. Mo Tienga saw Lord Daoist Jinghe at first glance, who told him to be so eye-catching with his dazzling golden clothes. "Master." Lord Daoist Jinghe turned to look at them and glared at them. "2 little brats. You really know how to cause trouble. You need a lesson, right?" Mo Tienga giggled. "Master can teach us a lesson when we go back." "Less nonsense. Why aren't you helping us?" Although it was delightful for master and disciple to reunite, they had to be careful of provoking public anger. Qin Shoujing only used a sound-transmitting talisman, but Qin Jing had dragged a large group of nascent soul cultivators to fight. It was really annoying. Sure enough, Ding Wan shouted loudly, "Can you master and disciple talk after you're done fighting? If you keep talking, I'll leave." Mo Tienga and Qin Shi cupped their fists towards the number 1 female cultivator in the celestial pole and joined the fight. At the same time, she sent a voice transmission to Jing Xingji, who wasn't too far away. "Fellow Daoist Jing, go back and take a look. Maybe you'll have a fated chance." Jing Xingji, who was fighting, looked at her with surprise. Mo Tienga showed a faint smile. Jing Xingji pondered for a moment, then pretended to be powerless and returned to the sacrificial temple. Chapter 561. The fight of dozens of nascent soul cultivators soon caused the whole mountain to collapse. This secret storehouse hidden in the West Mountain Range was finally exposed to the sun after tens of thousands of years. As soon as they saw the sun, the ghost cultivators turned pale with fright and hurriedly retreated to the ghost city. The human cultivators seized the opportunity and finally alerted the master of the ghost city, the Ghost Venerable. This ghost venerable was already at the peak of the late nascent soul realm, only a step away from the deification realm. Because ghost cultivators had no bodies, it was difficult for them to resist the power of heaven and earth. Once they advanced to the deification realm, they would face a great tribulation, so they didn't dare to do so. Even under the sun, the 3 late nascent soul cultivators and the ghost venerable only fought to a draw. In the end, the 2 sides shook hands and sat down to negotiate. These things had nothing to do with Mo Chenga and Qinshi. With the elders here, they couldn't make decisions. They just sat leisurely on a relatively intact mountain, waiting for the result of the negotiation. In this war, Fengsha City and the mountain range connected to it were almost razed to the ground, causing the Shirong people not far from Fengsha City to shout that gods had descended. Looking at these Shirong people, Mo Chenga had a strange feeling. Thinking about it carefully, the legend of the Shirong people was quite close to the truth. They said Fengsha City was a city of devils, but in the end, there really was a ghost city hidden under Fengsha City. They said gods had descended. Weren't they, the cultivators, the gods in the eyes of the Shirong people? Jing Xingji flew out of the sacrificial temple with a happy face. The mountain collapsed and the sacrificial temple was exposed. Qin Shoujing Mo Qingwei. He shouted from a distance, causing a lot of people to look at him. Nie Wuxiang curled her lips. He was really a very practical guy. He called whoever was good for him. Look, the 3 of them were sitting together, but this guy simply ignored her. The sword light fell on the mountain where they were. Jing Xingji put away his flying sword and smiled like peach blossoms flying everywhere. You subdued it? Mo Chenga asked. Jing Xingji nodded. He couldn't control the smile on his face. Haha, I've finally gotten lucky this time. Nie Wuxiang said indifferently, you've put good luck on your face. Do you want others to steal it? There are many jealous people here. Jing Xingji stopped smiling. Unfortunately, he was in a good mood. Even if he didn't smile, he was still beaming with joy. Ahem. He put on an act and stopped smiling. He looked at the nascent soul cultivators who were resting not far away and said, if they want to snatch this Taoist things, it depends on whether they have the ability or not. It wasn't that he was being arrogant, but it was good enough that he didn't rob ordinary Yuanchu and Yuanzhong cultivators. As for late Yuanchu cultivators, they could still run if they couldn't beat him. Just as they were chatting, the Night Frost Demon Monarch came over. Now that the Celestial Pole demonic path was at odds with each other, she was a demonic cultivator. If she hadn't reached an agreement with them, she would most likely be surrounded and attacked by them right now. The Night Frost Demon Monarch was very glad that he had chosen to work with them. Fellow Taoists. Fiend Lord Night Frost bowed. The 4 of them stood up and bowed in return. I'm going back to Yunzhou. Let's meet again if fate allows it. Fellow Yi Shuang, are you leaving so soon? The Night Frost Demon Lord swept his gaze across the surrounding cultivators and said, it's inconvenient to stay here. It's best if you leave as soon as possible. Mo Chenga thought of something and asked, fellow Taoist Night Frost, didn't you come here for something? If you leave now, wouldn't this trip be in vain? The Night Frost Demon Monarch lowered his gaze and said softly, there's no need. The 4 of them understood that he must have taken this thing for Tianxian. The atmosphere was awkward, so Mo Chenga said hurriedly, that being the case, we'll meet again. The Night Frost Demon Monarch looked up and showed a rare smile. We'll meet again. Once he finished speaking, he waved the purple satin, turned into a flight light and quickly disappeared into the sky. Soon after the Night Frost Demon Monarch left, Lord Taoist Jinghe came out. As a late nascent soul great cultivator and the representative of Shenqing School, he naturally participated in the negotiations. Now that he came out, there should be a result. Master. Mo Chenga and Qinshi shouted. Jing Xingji and Nie Wuxiang stood up awkwardly and bowed. Senior Jinghe. Lord Taoist Jinghe waved his hand and said, why are you so polite? Sit down. He then took out the cloud carriage in a carefree manner and cast a spell, turning it into a gazebo. As expected of a late nascent soul cultivator, even his means of enjoyment were more brilliant than theirs. It could be seen that nascent soul cultivators also depended on accumulation. Those who were carefree wherever they went were most likely nascent soul cultivators who had been cultivating for a long time. Only then would they have the time to make these things in their spare time. As for those like them who found a random corner to squat, they were most likely people who hadn't formed their nascent soul for a long time or wholeheartedly cultivated. Although these means of enjoyment weren't important in fighting, if they fought normally, their momentum would be weakened. Mo Chenga wondered whether she should also make something. Ever since she embarked on the path to immortality, she hadn't stopped cultivating. Now that she was a nascent soul cultivator, cultivation speed wasn't the most important thing. She still had more than 1,000 years of lifespan. With her qualifications and resources, reaching the late nascent soul realm was only a matter of time. Therefore, the most important thing was accumulation. Not only the accumulation of cultivation but also the accumulation of mental state. The 5 of them sat in the gazebo. Qin Shi asked first, "Master, how did your discussion go?" Lord Daoist Jinghe said, "Since we didn't fight, we naturally reached an agreement." What was the result? The 4 pairs of eyes stared at Lord Daoist Jinghe. "We repaired the damaged parts of the ghost city, and the storehouse and the sacrificial temple will belong to us. Both sides won't invade each other." Oh, this was the best result. Now that the celestial pole was facing enemies on both sides, it really couldn't afford a war. For these ghost cultivators, occupying the resources on the ground was also unnecessary. They were afraid of sunlight, so it was best if they could hide in the ghost city and cultivate without competing with the rest of the world. Lord Daoist Jinghe wasn't interested in these things, so he simply glanced at the 4 people without saying anything. Mo Chenga and Qin Shi were scared by his gaze, and Ye Wuxiang and Jing Xingji also felt a bit uneasy. Because of Mo Chenga and Qin Shi's relationship, the 2 of them naturally regarded Lord Daoist Jinghe as their elder. Now that they saw his expression, they couldn't help but think. Did Lord Daoist Jinghe have a bad opinion of them and didn't want them to associate with them? Ye Wuxiang was used to feeling inferior. She was Master Song Feng's disciple, and Master Song Feng was hated by everyone in Kunwu. As for Jing Xingji, he couldn't help but think that he was an abandoned disciple of Gujin's sect, so he really wasn't a good disciple to the sect. Unexpectedly, Lord Daoist Jinghe didn't even ask them. He just said, "Did you get something good?" Others might not know, but he knew there were good things in the sacrificial temple. Qin Shi got the vermilion bird bow from the vermilion bird sacrificial temple, so there was no reason that the white tiger sacrificial temple didn't have anything. The white tiger's fated chance was useless to ghost cultivators, so it must have been taken by the 4 of them. Mo Chenga chuckled. "Master, are you jealous?" Lord Daoist Jinghe rolled his eyes at her. "Don't show off your fated chance. Otherwise, if I can't control myself one day, I'll snatch all your treasures." "Yes, Master, snatching a disciple will cause inner demons." "Inner demons my ass. I'm already in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, so there's nothing to worry about even if I don't advance to the deification realm." Both Nye Wuxiang and Jing Xingji were dumbstruck as they watched the 2 of them spouting nonsense. Both of them had masters before, so when they faced their masters, they were always respectful and respectful. Unlike them, the master and disciple who spouted nonsense. After Jing Xingji recovered from his surprise, he thought, the rumors are indeed true. Lord Daoist Jinghe is very strange. He doesn't look like a nascent soul cultivator at all. After talking nonsense, Lord Daoist Jinghe looked at Nye Wuxiang with a smile. "Girl, you're old man Song Feng's disciple, right? That old guy doesn't look like a person, but he actually taught such a disciple." Although he didn't say it explicitly, his tone showed his appreciation for Nye Wuxiang. Nye Wuxiang was a bit overwhelmed by the favor. "Senior?" Lord Daoist Jinghe waved his hand and said, "You don't have to be so nervous. I have a big grudge against your master and it has nothing to do with you. You're friends with my 2 brats, so I regard you as a junior." "Thank you, senior." Nye Wuxiang suppressed the excitement in her heart and answered. Lord Daoist Jinghe smiled and said, "Since I regard you as a junior, I'll give you a word of advice. Your master made a lot of enemies in Kunwu, so if you don't have anything else to do, you shouldn't stay in the celestial pole. Now that the world has changed, you can go anywhere and Yunzhong is very suitable." Nye Wuxiang answered respectfully, "This matter is over, so Junior originally planned to return to Yunzhong." Lord Daoist Jinghe nodded with a smile, then turned to Jing Xingji and said with a sigh, "Boy, your fate can be considered full of misfortunes. I knew your master in the past, so I'll give you a word of advice. Being an individual cultivator is certainly unrestrained, but with a cultivation group as a backer, some things are much more convenient. Old Taoist Fuling is dead, and you're already a nascent soul cultivator, so the obstacles in the past don't exist anymore." Jing Xingji looked serious, which was rare for him. After listening to Lord Daoist Jinghe's words, he was silent for a moment, then respectfully replied, "Thank you for your advice, senior. Junior will definitely keep it in mind." However, he didn't make his attitude clear. Lord Daoist Jinghe knew Jing Xingji had his own ideas, so he didn't say anything more. After all, people were different. Although he lived several hundred years longer than these juniors, he couldn't make decisions for them. Right? Lord Daoist Jinghe glanced at Nye Wuxiang and said, "When we came, we happened to run into old man Song Feng here." Mo Chinga was shocked and asked impatiently, "What was the result?" "Master Song Feng he even gave up his body." With Nye Wuxiang here, Lord Daoist Jinghe put away his complacency and said, "Although we didn't make him stay with so many people, we still heavily injured him. At the very least, he shouldn't think about stirring up trouble in the next 100 years. Nye Wuxiang felt both relieved and sad. Since her master was seriously injured, she didn't have to worry about him chasing after her for a while. This thing was left by old man Song Feng. "You can play with it." Lord Daoist Jinghe took out a gray bead from his sleeve and threw it to Mo Chinga. This soul bead was very rare, but it had no specific use and was nothing more than a toy. At that moment, a sword light flew towards them from not far away, and a handsome young swordsman landed on top of the mountain. Mo Chinga discovered his cultivation level was in the late nascent soul realm and the flying sword floating above his head, so she knew he was venerable swordsman Yuanying of Gujin sect. She didn't expect this top late nascent soul sword cultivator to look like a teenager. Upon seeing him, Lord Daoist Jinghe said lazily, "Old man Yuanying, why are you in the mood to come here?" Venerable swordsman Yuanying was famous for being indifferent. She didn't care about anything and rarely interacted with other cultivators. For him to take the initiative to come here was like the sun rising from the west. Venerable swordsman Yuanying glanced at him and said coldly, "It's none of your business." She then walked towards Jing Xingji. Jing Xingji hastily stood up. Although he didn't salute, his expression and behavior were very respectful. Venerable swordsman Yuanying stared at him for a long time before asking faintly, "Are you willing to return to Gujin sect?" You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.